Witsit.com. Austin Witsit, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on. How's it going, brother?
Pretty good. And so about a month ago, InfoWars Twitter account put out a question: who do you want to see Harrison Smith debate? And your name was by far and away the most popular response.
How that happened. That was weird.
Why is that? Why is there this hunger for the flat Earth debate, but for you in particular? Do you think?
Is there any way you can put the volume up more?
I think I've done pretty well in the debates, and typically the opponents are not all that worthy. Humbly, they're just not typically as informed. So I think that, especially with InfoWars, there's a huge crossover, right? They just want to see the position accurately represented on kind of the big stage, if you were. So I think that's probably more what it is. I think a bunch of people think I'll accurately represent what we think.
Well, and obviously there's been a lot of comments I've seen saying either this won't happen because InfoWars is controlled, or I don't know, all sorts of speculation about why InfoWars doesn't cover flat Earth theory. But let me just ask you, because we got a little first 5-minute segment, and then we're going to have two 23, 25-minute segments to close out this hour. We're doing minimal commercial breaks here. We are on the radio, so we have to take some, but we're going to take them minimally. So in the first 5 minutes, I just wanted to introduce you and sort of talk about the idea and everything. How did you get into flat Earth in the first place?
Yeah, so similar to what a lot of people say. So you have the side that says InfoWars is controlled opposition. They won't talk about flat Earth. And then you have the side that says it's a CIA psyop used to distract people. I had a similar response. It's funny, actually. I heard about it through the rapper B.O.B.
Right.
So he was dropping the Elements mixtapes, and he was basically 100% on point with all the conspiracy theories he was mentioning in the mixtapes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had researched all of them. Then he said the Earth was flat. And I was like, wow, bro, you just made me look ridiculous to everyone I was telling to listen to you, right? And then, like, similar to most people, I had the initial reaction of what does that even mean? And then you start to just ask 1,000 questions of, well, how would this work on flat Earth? Well, how would that work? That doesn't even make sense to me. So then I just went to look up pictures of the Earth from space. I'm like, this is going to be easy. I have millions of pictures. And that was not the case. This was 2015, and the last claimed picture to even be real at that time was 1972, so the Apollo missions. And needless to say, I was already very skeptical of the Apollo missions. So immediately I thought, okay, well, there may be something here, right? Which there should be millions of real pictures. I should have live HD live streams of the Earth from space. So that's how it started. And then I kind of fell down the rabbit hole. And I think this is an important part of it all as well. You'll instinctively just say, well, how would eclipses work? How does this work? How does that work? And if you can't find an answer, you think, oh, well, then it can't be flat. The actual way you have to go about it, and this is why all flat earthers exist, is they went to disprove flat Earth, and more so they went to prove the globe. And then when you look for the actual evidence that supports the claimed size of the globe, you've run into problems, right? And so if we falsify the globe, we don't really need to replace it, or it remains true. So that's pretty much my really succinct journey through this. Is I just went to look for evidence of the globe. I went and made observations myself. It just didn't stack up. And needless to say, like years later, it just gets worse and worse. And, I can assure the audience, flat Earth is going nowhere because of the lack of evidence. So, that's kind of my journey really quickly.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting, and we'll get into the actual debate portion here on the other side. It's sort of the first debate we've held, so it'll be interesting, but I guarantee it'll be fun. And let me mention, today's debate is brought to you by BrainForce Ultra, InfoWarsStore.com. Take the BrainForce Ultra, and we'll hit the ground running on the other side. Stay with us. Short 60-second commercial break, and we'll be back.
Hey, 4 minutes before we had to buy vitamins.
Hey, dude, the audio really kicks up when it's commercial time. Huh?
Yeah, it does seem to be so.
Energy levels while adapting your body to handle the daily bombardment of toxins. And that's why DNA
Force... camera setup's looking good. The daylight made a big difference.
He doesn't look like the elf or whatever on the show.
Since I'm dishing out fashion advice, he should shave that mustache.
Listen, we can't expect miracles on day one. All right, you're crazy. Shaving.
What kind of camera did he buy?
Everyone go at Witsit, shave your mustache.
No, not Witsit.
And then say Jackie or whatever. So he knows.
Dude.
Oh, Harrison. Everyone go at Harrison, shave your mustache.
Witsit's mustache. Talk about that guy's mustache.
Oh,
Yeah, if Witsit shaved his
Commercial.
mustache, he'd look Amish. Because he'd have the
Oh my
Beard
goodness.
with the no mustaches on.
the
bro.
chin strap. Dude, I had the giant chin strap with no mustache for like 2 years.
What?
Oh, I think
I don't know why. That was my thing for a while.
I didn't ask why. I knew you didn't know why. All
Thought
right.
it was cool.
Me too, bro. I feel your pain.
Nice.
But this is already off to a great start. Harrison's super respectful.
Yep. Yeah, it did really well.
Flat Earth debate. Myself and Austin Witsit. Austin Witsit can be found on X at
it was
Witsit Gets
overwhelming.
It
Everyone
and his
took it.
website witsitgetsit.com, where he talks flat Earth as well as a number of other conspiracies. And so I figured the way that we would do this, I've seen other online debates do it, where both sides will take about a 10-minute opening statement to state their stances, if you need all 10 minutes or not. And Austin and I talked during the break, and we decided I'll go first, then Austin will get 10 minutes to respond. That sound good?
Sounds great.
All right. Okay. So I'll just go ahead and begin. I want to start with sort of 3 preconditions from my perspective, what I'm bringing into this debate. First of all, again, I do not care if people believe in flat Earth. I have absolutely no stake in the matter. I don't think people that believe in flat Earth are stupid. I don't think that, I understand the impulse. I understand the questioning of institutions. I get all of that. I don't discriminate against flat Earth people. I just simply, honestly don't think it's really worth discussing. But we are discussing it here, and we'll get to why that is. But I don't care if you believe in flat Earth. I don't judge people by that at all. I have family and friends that believe in flat Earth. I respect them tremendously. 2, I don't have any training, indoctrination.
Dude, did he really just say
I
it's
barely
not worth
have
discussing,
education
but we're
in the
gonna
matter.
discuss it anyway?
I have no loyalty to NASA or any other governmental organization whatsoever. Just like all government organizations, NASA lies all the time. That doesn't mean the Earth is flat. But 3, in my position as a professional conspiracy theorist, I'm really incentivized to actually believe in flat Earth, if anything. I know there's a huge and extremely supportive audience of flat Earthers, and if I was cynical and greedy, I would pretend to support flat Earth because I know that the support that could get me. If anything, I'm sort of anti-pandering here. I know about half my audience believes in flat Earth, but I simply don't. And, it would really seem like it would be in line with my general position, which is questioning authorities and questioning the official story. But at the end of the day, I just sincerely don't believe it. So those are sort of my preconditions. I don't have any training. I'm not loyal to any, science. I'm not a trust the science type of guy. I don't actually care if you believe in flat Earth, and I'm really incentivized, if anything, to believe in flat Earth, but I just don't. And so why I'm against the flat Earth, also, I can sort of divide into 3 parts. 1, I just genuinely do not think it's true. I researched flat Earth. I'd heard about it like you. I had gone in going, actually, I went saying, I'm ready to be convinced. I've heard people think the Earth is flat. I think that's awesome. Let me be convinced. I went in with a sincere willingness to be convinced. I found the arguments against the widely accepted heliocentric model to be entirely unconvincing. So I just don't think it's true. 2, I think the spiritual interpretations are total nonsense. Regardless of the cosmic model, Earth, I believe, is a priceless jewel of unsurpassed galactic importance. I see God's handiwork in all of creation, including the divinely arranged solar system. If anything, I find the concept of flat Earth completely out of step with the rest of creation, and I can explain that later. But 3, I think the overall discussion about flat Earth is detrimental. I'd almost go so far as to say toxic to the discussion that we have every day, which is about the lies told by government to keep us under control. I actually, in doing my research, I really came to the conclusion that, if anything, flat Earth is a psyop promoted by the powers that be to distract, divide, and discredit the truth movement. So, breaking down those 3 portions, here's how I see it. There are natural phenomena that I can observe every day with my eyes that have no readily apparent explanation. The sun, the moon, the stars, eclipses, Sunsets, sunrises, these things are evident but mysterious. I don't have an answer to them, evidently prima facie, just from my own observation. So if somebody came to me and told me that we're standing on a stationary plane and that there's a dome above us that rotates at a continuous, degree, and the moon and sun revolve around the Earth, I would say that makes sense. Yeah, that comports with my observation. It certainly could be the case. But if somebody else came along and said, well, actually, the reason the sun looks like it's circling around us because the Earth is spinning, and all the other aspects of the heliocentric model, I'd have to say, yeah, that also makes sense. I can also picture that as being true. But then you have things like stars that don't behave like other stars, whatever you want to call stars. The points of light, there are some that wander, right? Planets, that's where the term planet comes from. They seem to wander independently. Now, if you assume the Earth is at the center of these planets, you can actually map the paths. They're just sort of twirly, wiggly lines. But you can do it, and you can predict them, and you can actually track them and measure it, assuming that the Earth is the center. That does make sense. It's just you're going to get sort of a different path for each planet that make different motions depending on the time of day. But then if you shift the center, the assumed center, to the sun, and you take a heliocentric model, all of these disseparate and seemingly random paths just go shoot right in the middle. Suddenly it's all very nice, clean, explicable, concentric circles. That makes absolute sense. Obviously, these planets all seem to be affected by the same force, not completely different forces that give them different paths. They all actually take pretty much a similar path, just in a concentric circle model. So basically, I've got two people in front of me. I just picture myself as like a goat herder in Greece 2,000 years ago. I just see this stuff, and I've got two people in front of me. One that's got an argument for flat Earth, and the other that argues for the globe Earth. And I know that in your argumentation, you like to present the globe Earth side as presenting a model. Therefore, it's making a positive claim. Therefore, it has the burden of proof. But to me, these claims are equally burdened. I mean, they're both claiming to be able to explain what I'm seeing. Just because one side claims to be able to provide a model and the other side doesn't mean that second person has no obligation to explain anything. I'm looking for an explanation for these things, and one side can present it, the other side can't. So the tactic I've seen you take is sort of almost take the position as if it's a trial, like a criminal trial, where the prosecutor has the burden of proof, and your job is to simply disprove or undermine or cause reasonable doubt in those claims. Like if NASA is the prosecutor and flat Earth as the defendant. But that's not the case. I mean, I see both of these arguments having a burden of proof to some degree. But even if this was a criminal proceeding, and that was the case, that reasonable doubt was the standard, I still would have to say guilty, because the prosecution's case is airtight. You can nitpick at their evidence, but I've really seen nothing that undermines the core argument. Right. So their story makes sense. It fits all of the evidence, and we can get into all of the evidence for flat Earth later, but there isn't any. So that'll be an issue. And in the second part, so that's the first part. Just from my observation, what I'm seeing, looking for an answer, the heliocentric spinning Earth, round Earth model fits everything that I see, explains it to a very high degree. And even if there's, little things I don't understand here or there, it doesn't do anything to make me think the whole model is fake. So that's just why I don't buy the flat Earth arguments. But the second part is the spiritual aspect to this. And simply said, I do not believe that the shape of the Earth has any spiritual importance whatsoever. Flat Earthers seem to ascribe extreme spiritual significance to the shape of Earth. I do not. Whether the Earth is flat or not, I feel the same way about God. In fact, I think the globe Earth model comports more with my vision of God, as it is a sweeping, majestic, minutely detailed, intricate, and perfect model, just like most things in creation. A flat Earth model, to me, is childish and simplistic in comparison. Nothing else in creation that I can observe, makes me feel like I'm in God's celestial hamster cage that the firmament would represent. That being said, I know that this belief is essential to understanding the why of the conspiracy, right? The idea that making people believe that we're on a planet spinning through Earth makes people think we're less significant, is therefore it's easy to sway people towards a materialistic understanding of the Earth. I don't believe that in the first place, but obviously that would be the reason why, the primary reason why they would want to keep the shape of the Earth secret, if that was the case. So let's confront this conspiracy, because it would be a massive conspiracy necessary to uphold a lie of this magnitude. And it doesn't even make sense as a concept, right? If you
Harrison, you're under 1 minute.
If you put yourself in the position of people who are trying to keep this secret, there are like a million other ways you could do it. And I only have about a minute left, so I'll just stream through these. Basically, the scale of the conspiracy necessary to keep this up is too vast to be feasible. Millions of people have worked on space programs. Either they're all in it, or there's some sort of parallel industry constantly psyoping the people in the space industry. Whether satelloons or satellites or balloons, every image from space is CGI. Rocket launches fall into the ocean. Just one of these would require thousands of people working for decades in absolute secrecy, and the payoff is what exactly? Possibly weaken people's faith? Yeah, I don't buy it. The scale of the deception necessary is frankly too great, and the payoff is non-existent. The third part is the psyop, and we can get into this a little bit, but essentially, the only thing that gave me pause when researching Flat Earth was the fact that there are like fact checks and that it is in fact censored. Clearly, it is censored to some degree, not to as great a degree as other things, but I know we should all recognize at this point the YouTube videos that have the little Wikipedia box under are probably worth paying attention to. So that gave me a little bit of pause. But then again, just because something is censored doesn't mean it is therefore true. And we know things like QAnon are censored, but also entirely fraudulent. And to me, looking over the timeline, the growth of Flat Earth does not seem remotely organic. If you search news archives by years, there's no mention of Flat Earth at all pretty much until 2013, until Obama, of all people, brings up the Flat Earth Society. And it seems like came out of nowhere. Nobody mentioned it before about 2013, and suddenly it's everywhere. It's the transgender movement of conspiracy theories. Nobody had ever heard of it a decade ago.
10 seconds.
But
Is that Ryan?
About 25% of people make it their entire personality. So that's my feeling on Flat Earth. The floor is yours, Austin.
Every single one of those points.
Nice. So I'm just going to try to address some of the meta things you mentioned here because that was a similar approach I wanted to take. We can get into the specifics in the open discussion. So like I said, I originally thought this must be a psyop and it's used to discredit all the other conspiracy theories, right? But that actually is not the case. Actually on the back of Alex's book, right, or Tucker's book, it mentions Alex. It says, he's super censored. Why would you have to do that if he's just wrong? He must be onto something. They don't censor flat earthers. And as you accurately pointed out, they absolutely do. And I've been kicked off Venmo, PayPal, Airbnb. We're talking about cosmology. As to why it's not as censored, there's no cover story, right? So with everything else, it's hate speech, it's dangerous, blah, blah, blah. It's dangerous medical misinformation that could hurt people. What can you say about flat earth? Really nothing, right? So there's no even cover story to actually censor it completely. So what do? They shadow ban it, which is arguably worse because when Alex Jones gets kicked off everything, everyone wants to know why. When you're still on YouTube, people think, oh, you're not censored, and then they can't find you. Like if you search Flat Earth, you get nothing but hit pieces. So it did absolutely explode. Obviously, the conversation would be, is it organic or not? But like you said, they pointed to the Flat Earth Society, which is specifically crafted misinformation. So that's like probably the strongest piece of evidence off the rip against the PSYOP narrative is when I looked into it, all the information that was presented to me as Flat Earth is not what Flat Earth actually was. It turns out it's totally different. It makes the position asinine, and it's not actually what they think. And so that's exactly what you would do if you're discrediting the truth. And as to the comparison to, say, QAnon, we know QAnon had a lot of truth in it. The reason QAnon worked was because it had a lot of truth. And so basically it was, don't get to these truths. If you're going to, we're going to round you up and guide how you interpret those truths, similar to Operation Trust, right? And just sit on your hands, don't do anything. So if it's a PSYOP, it hasn't worked very well because every single flat earther saw through the pandemic immediately. Every single flat earther protects their children from the onslaught of propaganda, probably the highest percentage of homeschooling in the world. It would be flat earthers. So as to it mattering or not, I'll touch on that. You did mention that it does have spiritual implications in our opinion, and you articulated disagreement, but it's pretty undeniable. So the conversation really comes down to two primary points, and is the Earth moving? Is the Earth a sphere? Those are the two primary things, and they're technically independent of each other, right? So the Earth could be stationary in a sphere in theory. And when you first go down that rabbit hole, it gets very, very interesting. To mention a few things, right? You obviously have the idea of geocentrism, as you mentioned. You mentioned the little squiggly lines. Well, it actually is just spiraling within a torus field. It's exactly the flower of life geometry, which we see all the way from the small scale to the big scale. We would actually expect the macro scale to fall within the flower of life because everything does, including the quantum scale. But it's called the Copernican principle. That's really like the foundation of this, right? It's the idea that the Earth does not occupy a special or unique position. So I certainly agree with you, bro, that looking at the current model would require a creator. This place requires a creator regardless. And actually, the first and second law of thermodynamics show you that naturalism is insufficient and you must invoke supernatural creator. For the sun and the moon to coincidentally be the same size in the sky, but actually the sun's 400 times bigger, just coincidentally 400 times further away. How is that not, requiring an intelligent designer? But at the same time, it isn't really about someone could say, well, I already believe in God. Well, yeah, but a lot of people don't, and atheism is the number one growing ideology, if you can even call it that, which results in nihilism and apathy and makes for perfect enslavement. So this is incredibly important. And when you look into the motion part, we were 100% undeniably lied to and misled about that situation. We're told that we know the solar system's a fact, and it's been proven the Earth moves around the sun. But in reality, you can look at Stephen Hawking, Edwin Hubble, Albert Einstein, Arthur Eddington, every major prominent astrophysicist or astronomer in history, and they will tell you, oh, we can never disprove that the Earth's in the center. We can't actually prove that the Earth is moving. It's equally viable or more viable. We prefer to not go that route because Stephen Hawking said on grounds of modesty, and Edwin Hubble called it horrific and intolerable, a special and unique position. So that's a philosophical decision that they made for the world, and then misled the world about what it actually was. So that's important. And we can obviously get into the specifics. You can 100% prove the Earth is not moving. It was done in 1887 with the Michelson-Morley. And it's been replicated many times since then. And what happened was they brought in Albert Einstein, flipped physics all on its head to keep the Earth moving around the sun. And that's why all physics is at a standstill now, because they threw out the electrical field theory understanding of a background medium, or what is called the ether. They kept the Earth moving through space, and now we have this compartmentalization of physics that doesn't all work together. So to not overload everyone, my point there is that's one major part of it. Yeah, if the Earth is in the center of the universe, it had to be created. And I get you could argue that it would have to be created either anyway, but you have a much stronger illusory position of confidence when you say, oh, well, the universe is so big that the Earth is this tiny speck of dust in this ever-expanding universe, and just based on mere chances and probability, the Earth could exist and be habitable, right? And that is the type of thinking that leads people to the idea that, well, no, this place wasn't created. It was just random chance, and that it's literally the Copernican principle ideology, which is that the Earth does not occupy a special or unique position. So if the Earth's in the center of the universe, obviously someone had to put it there. It's the most special, the most unique position. There is nothing like it. That means that us humans who have domain on the Earth are obviously very special as well. People do not believe, quote unquote, believe in flat Earth. They stopped believing in the globe. And they then realized, oh, wow, this has spiritual implications. People do not go and seek out flat Earth because they want the Bible to be literally true or something. It's quite the opposite. People find out that the scriptures are now viable again. And so then it also comes into curvature, right? And so that's the two major things. And we falsified the radius value. So when it comes to, well, all the model works so well, that's also not true. And we can get into it. Every single part of the globe Earth model took hundreds of years to theoretically patch together, and it doesn't work. From the core all the way to the universe, none of it worked. It's not even close. And that's why you have dark matter and dark energy making up 96% of the universe. And it's just an illusion that we're in the center because everything's accelerating away from each other. All these crazy theories where if you just have the Earth in the center, you don't need any of that. And it matches all astronomical observations. You don't have to claim that everything is an illusion. So why were we not told that? That should be a very interesting question for the audience. You were lied to about cosmology, like just on its face, even if you want to believe we're moving through space and stuff. So And then the curvature, obviously, if the radius value is falsified, the entire model is falsified, right? Because gravity uses that, day and night cycle uses that, everything uses that. Alleged radius of orbit to go to space. All of these claims require that radius value to be true. The distances on the globe. So if it's untrue, the entire model is untrue. So that's a stillman of our position, is that we went to look for evidence of the globe, and it wasn't there. And falsification is independent of replacement. And I'll say this analogy, maybe it'll land. It's like if I went and looked through my parents' closet and I found adoption papers, and I'm like, walk up to you and say, dude, Harrison, you'll never believe it, man. My whole life is a lie, bro. Those aren't really my parents. I was adopted. And you say, well, who are your real parents then? I said, I don't know. I just found out that they're not my real parents. I just falsified they're my parents. I don't really know who the real ones are. And you could say, wait, you think everyone in town's in on it? Everyone in the church is in on it? No, they believe the lie. They believe that those are my parents. And if you said, well, until you can tell me who your real parents are, I'm not going to believe that those aren't your real parents. That would be ridiculous, right? Obviously, the falsification that they're my parents stands on its own. That's the way that this situation goes. Frankly and respectfully, I would say it's somewhat coping to not focus on that, focus on the evidence or lack thereof for the positive globe Earth claim, which is antithetical to all evidence and experience, and then focus on random questions like the meme says, oh, how does everything in the universe work? Oh, you don't know? Well, checkmate, stupid flirt, right? If you've ever seen that meme, that isn't a proper way to go about it. So that's kind of a lot of the meta arguments there. I don't really see this being a successful PSYOP. I think that it's done quite the opposite. And people should just step back and kind of look at the evidence for what it is. And that's what I encourage people to do. And just like you said, I will say, just like with everything else, like with the pandemic, we got gaslit the whole time. Oh, you science denier this, science denier that. Oh, you have no idea what we're talking about. Trust the experts. And of course, it was all a lie. It was all a lie. So ridiculing people, mocking people, dismissing them as a psyop and stuff is not an approach we should take as truth, right? We never do that. So long story short, when you look into the actual alleged claim that the Earth's a spinning globe, which again is antithetical to experience. So you're saying, well, I think you have the burden of proof as well. I agree. If we say that the Earth is flat and stationary, that has a burden, and it's substantiated with every observation and all-day experience that we have. Everyone experiences the Earth is stationary. Everyone experiences that the stuff in the sky moves in relation to the Earth not moving. We fly planes like the Earth is flat and stationary. We build bridges, runways, railways, all engineering as if the Earth is flat. Everything that we do is if this Earth is stationary and flat. The horizon, it comes from the word horizontal. So the default empirical position is that the Earth is flat and stationary, and that the sun and the stars and the moon, they move over top of us. There's a claim that comes in and says, well, that's actually an illusion, right? And everything is back. So that would have the burden of proof, and that's the line of logic for that.
All right. And with that, that is your time, and we are headed to break, guys.
All right, fascinating stuff. We'll do open discussion on the other side. If you got any videos or anything we want to play, we'll get into it on the other side. Stay with us, folks. Go to InfoWarsStore.com to support this important discussion, and we'll be right back.
Oh, man. He said Witsit can play some videos, huh?
Off to a great start, man.
That was a great opener.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, great job.
And honestly, I don't agree with Harrison on everything, obviously, but he is at least, being... I don't know. He's doing his best to present the position, and I think he's doing a good job of highlighting a lot of the InfoWars crowd's qualms. He's doing a good job of representing that boomer audience that's kind of reluctant to buy into this.
Yeah, it's actually important that the meta arguments get brought up so that they can be defended against, right?
Exactly. I think it's the biggest sticking point for a lot of them. Sorry,
I think he was a little bit taken there at the end, just looking at his body language, actually.
Yeah, agreed.
I think Harrison is sweating a little bit.
I'm certainly not down with all the stupid overlays they had while Witsit was talking, but I guess it's expected.
Yeah, they're just doing content. I doubt it's anything what's the word I want? Anything on purpose or whatever.
Oh, well, it was all content based on one side. That's all. Instead of, like giving content for both sides.
Well, I
it
don't
was
think.
just-
My
just
guess
one.
is that they don't even realize it, right? Like they're just like, oh, throw some images up there of the globe, of Earth, of whatever, like, or a flat Earth, and they're not like, whoever produced that little section was not a flat earther. This is my guess.
Clearly, right?
Yeah,
Clearly.
they don't really know or care. They're just like, oh, Google search flat Earth. Here we go. Put all these in our stream. We
And
love
doesn't
Google.
want to be nonpartisan either.
yeah. Well, we all know Google's nonpartisan. So if you go to Google and search flat Earth, you're going to find objective information. Just kidding, obviously. If you need a search engine, by the way, if you're listening and you need a search engine, do pre-search
today.
Pre-search Yandex. Those are both good.
Yandex owns all. I love Yandex.
Pre-search is cool too. I've had some pretty good luck with that one for certain things.
Use pre-search now. I just use Google because one, I'm not into crypto like it used to be, and that's what's so special about pre-search for me is you get crypto for searching, kind of like with the Brave thing. But
oh, I don't like that personally. I find that stupid.
Man coffee, ladies.
Oh, you don't like that? You said?
No, it's scammy.
Nah, whatever. I was just, anyways, but like that's why I used it. But I don't think there's a difference. I don't think there's a difference on the search content. Is my point. From my experience.
For Escape the Prison Planet,
Escape the Prison Planet. I'm going to go ahead and plug Brushtail Coffee here. You should instead buy Brushtail Coffee because it's roasted fresh and shipped the same day it's roasted. Brushtail.coffee.
And it supports the community.
True. It's my coffee company.
There it goes.
Buy your dinner in MRE packages from Alex Jones, guys.
That's right. You can get your Brushtail Coffee in your band.video MRE package. I wish.
Look at all those flat earthers in the live chat, dude.
Yeah, dropping it. It's beautiful.
Like it's hot.
I don't think they were going to get away with avoiding this conversation much longer. From what I keep hearing and seeing, I think they're kind of backed into this corner. Like they've got to be losing audience at this point.
Definitely losing audience.
Yeah, showing all this flat Earth content. Come on. Oh.
Ground control to Major Tom.
What a weird choice.
Yeah, gosh, you're gonna get freaking copyright striked for that one little line I just played.
Yeah, that's definitely up there.
At Witsit Gets It. I lost my paper that says it, but that's right, right? Wait. So yeah, open discussion time. Obviously, we both brought a bunch of stuff in our opening statements. I guess to me, again, every debate I've watched from Flat Earth sort of has the same paradigm, the same dynamic. It's somebody like yourself that's arguing for Flat Earth, and then there's like the Bill Nye the Science Guy, Neil deGrasse Tyson wannabe. And frankly, I don't really care about the scientific arguments as much when it comes to whether experiments are valid or whether the physics checks out. I really do just go down to like basic observation and logic and what would be necessary to cover this sort of thing up. And we can get into the PSYOP aspect in just a little bit. But like the moon is a sphere, right? Can we agree on that? Because I mean, to me, it's pretty undeniable. The moon is in fact a sphere that we can all see. Do you agree with that?
Well, I've never seen the other side of the moon, but I would agree that it looks somewhat spherical, sure.
Okay.
But, I've replicated a moon like with polarization where it looks like a sphere. And you can walk over there and put your hand right through it, right? It's a projection. just with electromagnetic polarization in the atmosphere, you could have I don't know what the moon is, but I would agree. Yeah, it does. It's certainly round and looks like it could be a sphere. I've never seen the other side of it before, so I can't say I know it's a sphere, right?
But
coincidentally, we only see the one side.
But the shadows on the moon certainly make it look like a sphere, right? I mean, unless you have another explanation for why the shadow moves the way it does across the moon. I mean, it basically has to be a sphere, right? I mean, are you saying the moon is a projection, or do you think it's a physical object?
I don't know what the moon is. I'm just saying I'm not like a lot of evidence to suggest that it's not particularly solid. Actually, like even the Astronomical Society said that they've seen stars through the moon. There are things called lunar waves. The Terminator line. Sometimes there will be things lit up on the other side of the Terminator line, right? Which shouldn't be happening if it is a solid sphere with the actual shadow. I don't even claim to know that is quote unquote a shadow. We can replicate that with polarized lenses. It can just literally be like a plasma polarized lens, and it could be solid for all I know, and just be optically displaced within a medium. Both models, I think, is when you start hearing the stuff you've never heard, it sounds like I'm just making stuff up. But no, but both models claim that the sun and the moon aren't actually where we see them, right? That they're apparent positions. So that's interesting to know. It could be a solid sphere and just not where we see it. It could be relative to each observer based on their angle to it. So, but this is what I will say that is actually kind of a meme. And normally people do want to, like, what's the moon? I don't know, man. I just know that the Earth is not what they said. You know, can I ask you a question? Like, you said you're just kind of into observation, right? That's what made me a flat earther, bro. Because I did not want to be a flat earther. Okay, let's just get that out. Like, it discredited everything I ever said, right? I'm like the conspiracy theorist of my family. So like all of a sudden I'm going to come around saying the most ridiculous thing ever. I'm immediately discredited. So right. I went out and looked, though, bro. You can see mountains from 300 miles away. They should be 2-3 miles below Earth curvature, and you can see them.
Well, we'll talk about curvature here in just a second. But, again, it seems to me like you can see the moon, and it's pretty clear what it is. It's a rocky body. It's solid. You can see the craters. I mean, powerful telescopes or even, powerful cameras can zoom in quite a bit, and it's not a projection. It seems fairly solid to me. So, to me, this is, obviously just because the moon is a sphere doesn't mean the Earth is a sphere. And I know the argument that I've heard quite a bit is like, just because pool balls are circular doesn't mean the pool table is circular. Yeah, that's true. Just because the moon is a sphere does not mean that the Earth is a sphere, but it might kind of be like a hint, right? It might kind of be a clue. And it sort of means that if you use terms that I've heard where it's like this cartoon Earth of some idea of a orb suspended in nothing, it's like, well, that's not actually that ridiculous because we literally see one every day. I think the shadows obviously show that it's a sphere, and then you have things like the eclipse, and you brought up the fact that the sun is 400 times the size of the moon, but 400 times away, so it's a perfect match. And yeah, I mean that. Whether the sun is 400 times or 200 times, whatever the actual multiplication is, the fact is that with solar eclipses, you can see that the moon is clearly in front of the sun, and yet they're the same size. So whatever that calculus is, it is the distance is equal to the size difference. You know what I'm saying? So obviously, the sun is behind the moon. The moon is an object that is apparently equivalent in size of the sun because of our distance from it and the perspective of it. And again, that sort of, I mean, if you accept that the moon is a sphere that's above the Earth, everything else kind of follows. I mean, I really think that debunks a lot of flat Earth. I mean, because then obviously the moon has to go away for a certain period of time. It matches up with the spinning of the Earth. I mean, if the moon is a sphere and is a solid object that's floating above the Earth and circling around it, I mean, that seems to me like it doesn't necessarily prove that we are circling around the sun, but it certainly proves that the Earth is a sphere and the moon is circling around us, right? That, to me, again, that's just imminently observable.
Like I said, it could be a sphere. It does somewhat look like a sphere. I will just say stars have been seen through the moon, it appears. I think that reality is way more mind-blowing than we know, and people think they have answers to everything, but really when you look under the hood, there aren't answers for everything. But if we kind of talk about that, if we use like Occam's razor, that which requires the least amount of assumptions is most likely to be true. Doesn't mean it is true. but we see the sun and the moon appear to be the same size. And we have a night light and a daylight, and they're the same exact size in such an extent that we can get perfect total solar eclipses. And they claim that that is just a coincidence based on the way that a Mars-sized body hit the Earth and broke it up, and a little piece of debris stuck around the Earth, and then gravity coalesced into a sphere that stopped around 238,000 miles away. Just coincidentally, the size of that rock matches up with the size of the sun optically, even though it's 400 times smaller than it is.
Right, but that
like
I mean, that is the case, right? I mean, it is the same size prospectively as the sun, but clearly it's not on the same plane as the sun since it passes in front of it. So whatever that differential is, it has to be. I mean, that is accurate, right?
Sure, but if it was just barely behind it, it would look like the same size. So they could be very similar distances in the same size, right?
Well, no, I mean, they'd have to be a little bit, because they are exactly the same size and different. And again, I don't think that just because the moon is a sphere, that means that I trust that they understand how it was created. Or, I mean, you know, the moon could be hollow for all we know. The whole, like, it rang like a bell when they crashed something into it. I mean, there have been a lot of stories. I don't think we know everything about the moon's entire life cycle, but I do think it's a sphere in the sky, which, you know, would hint that there are other spheres in the sky. It would hint that that's a possibility. It would make me question why the moon doesn't fall when everything else falls to Earth because of gravity. You know, it would hint that either it's not affected by the force of gravity or it's being affected in a different way, which to me explains orbit pretty well, pretty succinctly. I want to show a couple images here, because this again sort of illustrates to me that not only is the moon a sphere, but it's being lit by a light source that is extremely far away. We can go to some of the pictures called Ball and Moon. And there are a couple of these, but you can do it yourself. If you see the moon during the daytime and you hold a ball up, they have essentially the same shadow. It'll be cast on the ball as the moon because they're both being lit by the same source, which would be the sun, which would be extremely far away. So how would this happen without an extremely far away sun lighting both the ball and the moon?
Well, for one, they actually don't look entirely the same, right? You will actually see that there's a gradient of light on a
pretty
spherical
similar,
object. They are somewhat similar, yes. That's how we made the model, right? We looked at the sky and then we created the model over hundreds of years. So of course it matches the sky. That's how we made it, the globe Earth model. But there could be a relationship between it being lit up, or there are many theories about it. You know, like everything, it could have an electromagnetic relationship. It could be charging up. It could all be within the same energetic cycle above us or whatever. I'm not even saying that they don't have a relationship. Many people have tried to, you know, measure the moonlight and say it isn't hot, and there's all debate about that and stuff. But this is kind of what I was talking about, though. Like, I get that this is probably even a good faith, genuine question. That's how you want to know how everything works. And since we've been given all these alleged answers as to how it works, we think, well, flat Earth has to replace everything I was told is true. But not really. We see a star through the moon. What they said can't be true. Like, we just saw that the moon looks blue during the day. And then we showed a picture of the Earth from the moon, which was NASA came out and admitted they photoshopped one of those pictures and didn't tell the public about it. Right, just a second ago that was shown. So I guess what I'm saying is do you agree that if the radius of the globe is falsified, everything else is falsified? So as to a question like, how would the moon work on a flat Earth? I don't know, but it is because we measured the surface of the Earth. I think that is the most important part. And I want to say this one more thing. When it comes to, you're right, it's like you can't look at the ceiling and say that's what the floor is, right? Mm-hmm. It's even more than that. It's if the Earth is in the center of the entire universe, it would be illogical to think that it's like everything else. It's the only thing that's in the middle. Everything else was created to move around it, right? So that's an important distinction there that most people don't point out. It would be illogical to say the Earth should be like what's in the sky when everything in the sky moves around the Earth. The Earth is distinctly different, right?
But again, we're dealing with two forms of reality: the perception and the actual, right? So it looks like everything's circling around us, but that would also be the case if we were spinning. It would look like everything was circling around us. That would mean it was circling around us. So again, it doesn't seem to me like there's any evidence that Earth is the center. I mean, what about the mapping of planets? Because I know one of the things, again, we have an image of this motion of solar system planets relative to Earth. So basically, this would be the orbital path that the other planets would take, Mars, Venus, all these other planets. If Earth is assumed to be the center, and they're like, spirals. They're like, they move around a lot. And if the crew can pull up that picture, motion of solar system, you can pull it up on my screen. So, how do you explain these paths and this motion without, a force acting on the planets other than gravity? I mean, how do you have a planet going towards and away from us if they're circling around us?
Well, there is a force. Automatically, there's some type of force, right? Because everything's moving around. If you look at a Ferrel cell image of a magnetic field, so it's just a creative invention that was made, you used 2 little pieces of glass, you put ferrol fluid and another fluid inside of it, line it with LED lights, and you can see the magnetic field. Right. It makes that exact same pattern. It's a torus field, sacred geometry, the golden ratio. That torus field, every one of those planets fit perfectly within a torus field. And of course, the heliocentric side's explanation for this is it's just a coincidence. Which is pretty ridiculous because we see the same geometry everywhere.
But how can it match perfectly when each planet is a different path? I mean, they can't all match perfectly because they don't match each other.
Yeah, but within a torus field, there are multiple different paths, right? So if you look at a Ferrel cell image, and I could maybe pull it up, but if you look at a magnetic field, you're going to see that all of those patterns are in there individually. And basically, each one of these quote-unquote planets are taking their own path within this torus field. They all fit within it perfectly. And you said that you don't see any evidence that the Earth's in the center. You are aware that the current model says you could never prove that the Earth's not in the center, and that all astronomical observations make it appear as if the Earth is in the center of the universe, but that's just an illusion.
Well,
so
it's an illusion because it's the illusion because we're on Earth and this is our only platform from which to observe space.
Sure, and it gets a little bit more complex than that, though, because even like the distant galaxies moved in relation to the Earth, right? And so then that's when Edwin Hubble was like, "Wait a minute, this doesn't make sense," and they had to say the whole universe is accelerating and expanding in all directions to create that illusion. And then they're like, wait, what causes that to happen, though? There has to be some type of energy that would make it expand faster than the speed of light. And that's where you get dark energy, which is never been discovered, defined. It'll never be found. And then you have dark matter to fix the gravity problems. I will actually say you can use a Lorentz magnetic force, to not get too technical, but it's pretty funny that you can show what's called a dynamic equivalence, meaning the way that the force makes objects move around each other, from a geocentric universe, and it's a magnetic Lorentzian force. And what a coincidence, the patterns of the planets fit perfectly within a magnetic field's geometry. So it's more elegant, actually.
Okay, but none of that actually explains what the force is moving it or how it's set on this path. And the other thing is that you would also get paths that match up to this if you were to take a Mars-centric model and plot the movement of the planets as if Mars was the center. You would get the same patterns. I mean, it's like one of those little toys that has the gear, and you put the pencil in and spin the gear around, and it creates the pattern. It doesn't matter which hole you put it in; it creates a similar pattern that will look on the face of it similar to like the torus field or the magnetic field. But that would be true if you plotted the motion of the Earth relative to Venus or Mars or Jupiter or any other planet. Earth is not the only one that plotting the rest of the planets creates this design. So that again is not evidence that Earth is in the center. It's evidence that Earth is on the circular path that all the other planets are on, because that's what matches perfectly.
Well, it's not just about the paths; it's about distant galaxies, right? So you're right. You can match it on any planet or whatever, and you could treat it as if it's in the center. Certainly, with relativity, it says it's all equally valid. You can choose anything as the center. But this is a little different than that. They looked out into deep space, quote unquote, and saw the galaxies moved in relation to the Earth. They should not have been. In this model, the Earth is tucked away in an insignificant corner of the universe. It is a random, non-unique position. everything should be moving every which direction in relation to, say, the singularity of the Big Bang or whatever people believe in, not the Earth. But they discovered it was. So it's not as simple as just I can put the coordinate system anywhere. It's that the universe has to be accelerating and expanding away from every other point. There is no center, and everything just makes the Earth look like it's in the center. Although you could map it out both ways. But that's not the proof. First of all, it's on its face. All observations show the Earth in the center. So to say it's not in the center, you're going to have to prove that. Then we went and looked further, and even the distant galaxies show that.
But I mean, there is the heliocentric model that maps everything and explains everything really well, and you can make predictions based on it that are proven out in observation. So, to say that everything centers around the Earth, obviously the heliocentric model is not centered on the Earth, and that's on a very small scale. You could say the whole solar system revolves around, or the whole universe revolves around the Earth, but at least in our solar system, it makes a lot more sense that things circle around the sun. I mean, the math, it makes a lot more sense in that regard.
If you assume that the sun is 93 million miles away and this huge ball of gas in a vacuum, if you assume the size of it and then you assume gravity, which is that, the bigger the mass, the more gravitational pull, which isn't even considered a pull or force anymore because that doesn't work. But that's actually not true either. The heliocentric model doesn't work. I mean, this is why we have dark matter. Though. It doesn't work because this is why we have dark matter.
There are certain aspects of it that we haven't figured out yet, but the stuff we have figured out works extremely well, right?
No. In 1933, a guy named Fritz Zwicky went and looked at galaxies, and he saw that this coma cluster, so a cluster of galaxies, it was off by 99% the amount of mass it was supposed to have for gravity to be true. And so they just said, oh, well, just plug in a number for missing mass. Now they call that missing mass dark matter. And it's still there. And it makes up 83% of the entire universe. This model is by 83%. How bad does your theory have to be before it's considered wrong? Right?
Well, my theory actually, has the possibility of distant galaxies. Where are the distant galaxies in the firmament? I mean, how can you even make this argument if space doesn't exist? Does space exist?
Outer space as defined, right, doesn't exist. But just like Edwin Hubble said, everything could be much more local, and the medium could be much more dense. And then he said, and might I add, suspiciously young. See, they have a bias against this because it creates special position for the Earth, and it makes the universe younger. It makes it a closed system, and it means everything's moving around it. And they will tell you in all their literature that it's just a philosophical bias. They don't want to believe that, and that's not a straw man. That's what they say, right? They say it up straight. You can never disprove the Earth in the center. But the best way to do it is to, if the Earth is moving around the sun 66,600 miles per hour, conveniently enough, you should be able to measure that, right? And we have interferometry that was supposed to measure it, and it did not. And we've done it since then. The Earth is not moving. It's been falsified. So Einstein came in and said, oh, well, the device you were using to measure actually
Sorry, I'm trying to fix that crackling sound. Maybe it wasn't the best time to refresh. Come on, Discord. Thanks everyone for bearing with me here. It'd just be a second. Yeah.
Therefore, you could never prove that the Earth is moving, or of course, just the Earth isn't moving, and all observations showing us what's really happening. Right? So we weren't told any of this.
But then that would mean that if the Earth's not moving, then the stars are moving. The sun is circling around us again. So so we have a firmament dome around a flat Earth. You don't actually have a model, right? So what is your conception of what Earth is? I mean, again, my conception of Earth is not exactly super scientific. Like, I don't know all of the details of it, but it makes perfect sense. Earth is spinning, tilted axis, moon orbiting us. We orbit the sun. Other planets also orbiting the sun. I mean, all of that makes perfect sense. Do you have any semblance of a model for flat Earth at all?
Yeah, sure. So it's a torus field. Just a torus field, and that explains pretty much everything. I could pull up an image. I don't know if that's possible, but a Farrell cell image of a torus field will show. You can just Google Farrell cell image magnetic field. You'll see a bunch of them. It's just a torus field, and there's a vortex in the middle, and What a coincidence. You take the magnetic flux data of the Earth, you put it on a flat Earth map, and you get a perfect vortex around the center. You take the planets and you fit them within the torus field. It's perfect. So, and of course, they claim.
It's not perfect. I mean, you can bring up the image, but it doesn't match perfectly. It generally looks somewhat like it, but because magnetic fields, visualized match the magnetic field of Earth, I mean, that's not even... So, I mean, is this your model, or... I mean, that Earth is round, so that can't be it, right?
No. This is a flat Earth. Ironically, this is actually the ISS trajectory on the left. This right here and this is a Ferrel cell image of a magnetic field. Right. All of these patterns fit perfectly within that. And then there's also this. This is the magnetic flux data of the magnetic field on the Earth. It all fits perfectly within what we see in a magnetic field. And then this is called a block domain wall. It's a plane.
Well, are you able to, we live on that. I'm not sorry. I'm just not seeing the images that you're pulling up. So if we can, if you can share your screen, I just want to make sure we know what you're talking about exactly.
Sorry, yeah, I am sharing screen on Skype right now, but I don't know if you can see it.
All right, we'll figure that out. We have about 2 minutes to break, but we'll work that out with the. Earth is a torus field. I mean, that's not a physical description of where we are or how the world is composed or the universe is composed. I mean, is there a firmament? What is underneath us? Are we on a flat plane? Is there a map you can present to me that makes any sense at all? Is Antarctica an ice wall, or is it a continent that exists? I mean, what is the actual argument? Saying that it's a magnetic or torus field that's not actually a physical description of where we are.
Well, shouldn't we apply the same logic that we do with everything else that we look into as truthers? Like basically our critique is that we're not a cult of thought. You're right. We all think for ourselves, and we're all trying to figure out what's going on. And there was a cultish belief system presented to us that you're not allowed to question without being ridiculed, right? But like, what's beneath us? I don't know. What's beneath you on the globe? The deepest hole ever dug.
Yo, what's up?
It's been crackling for about 2-3 minutes now, pretty bad. I thought it was on my end, but apparently I'm not the only one having the problem.
Yeah, no, I hear it too, and I don't know if it's just me. I'll mention
Platitude.
Again,
we effectively live in a real life Hunger Games.
It's fixed.
Like that's a real thing, whether you think there's a globe or not. You can't freely and privately go out there, and that's based on what our government did in 1946. They brought the Nazis over in 45. Operation Paperclip, 46, Operation High Jump. We went to Antarctica, and then we considered Antarctica our #1 focus.
All right,
and
we'll be right back. We'll pick it up with Antarctica on the other side. Ooh. Austin Witsit, the debate continues in the next hour. Stay with us.
That was gay.
Cucklight presents
He needs to get those torus field images up on the screen so everybody can see it.
Yeah, I sent them.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't share at the moment, though. Or they're not able to show it or whatever.
Harrison's doing the very typical, like, what else could it be?
It's round to me, and I don't see anything else, so it's round or whatever.
He had a smile on. I don't know if it was because he knew the commercial was coming or because he appreciated that Witsit had like a good.
He cut him off on purpose just then for sure. He loved it. This commercial's actually really funny.
You know, he's not trying to convince this guy. He's trying to convince the audience.
Do you know how long this will be? The
2.5-ish hours. Oh, what's up, Eric?
Started at 9.
I might have to go to work and miss it, so I'll have to look at Shane's YouTube version.
I think we're all recording and streaming, so there'll definitely be ample recordings around.
Okay,
hey,
well,
yourself, bro.
Everyone have a good day.
Nice.
See you later, bro.
You too, bro.
Have a good day.
We love it.
I don't think it's going to be 2.5 hours. I thought he said there's going to have a 45-minute segment after the intro or something.
Oh, well, I mean, like with commercials and shit. I don't know. Yeah. Like 2 hours-ish.
Which you need to get back to like long distance observations.
I'm surprised to see you're even interested, Flatty. You loving
Right.
it?
Hey, good to see you here, Flatty. Sorry, I talked over you. A little quiet.
Toby, you're too generous.
What? Oh, with that dude?
Yeah,
Oh,
letting that guy
fuck that
fucking
dude.
talk. Like, I'm about to you just go ahead and get rid of him, dog.
No, I know. I almost got rid of him like
Oh.
3 times already, but it's better to
already
to
did
give
it.
him a chance to show
Nah, it's
to
better
the
to let
people
Alan
that
do it,
aren't
though.
familiar. It's
Yeah.
better to have the record there to show. Oh, this is why this guy's a dork and doesn't belong on the server.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
also that way we can in the future be like,
Here
oh,
it goes.
here we go.
Nah.
It's funny to watch Alan work or whatever.
Worldwide, flatter globe. So we do have to take certain commercial breaks. This will be a short segment, then a 60-second break, and then we'll be back for 2 more big chunks. We're just going to dedicate this whole hour to continuing this conversation, because clearly we've barely scratched the surface. Antarctica. I think there's a lot of suspicious stuff about Antarctica. I think that there could be major military operations. There could be lost civilizations. There could be fertile land, right, underneath the ice with gaseous air pockets that preserve heat. There have been stories like that. I've read the accounts of Admiral Byrd and Operation High Jump, right? I get all of that stuff. But it ain't an ice wall. I mean, it does exist. And, you know, if it was me and I was trying to keep some sort of military operation, some sort of breakaway civilization secret, it would be the greatest gift in the world to have a bunch of my worst enemies, the truthers and conspiracy theorists out there, thinking that it doesn't exist at all, that the idea of Antarctica isn't even real. And, I mean, the map doesn't make any sense. I mean, just how do you comport this with everything else? I mean, there's a yacht race around Antarctica, right? People have circumnavigated Antarctica. It didn't take them as long as it would have taken them to go on the outside ring of a flat Earth. So, again, if you're saying Antarctica doesn't exist or is an ice wall or something, I mean, that alone sort of paints a picture of a model, because you have to have an ice wall around the outside and the Earth in the center. So is that the model that you're going with for flat Earth?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly open to that model. I think, again, the whole thing is detaching from making up claims you can't verify just because a bunch of people gave you claims that we can't verify, and so we need to replace them. But yes, it could be. It's known to be the highest elevation in the world. Just look up pictures of it. There is certainly what you could call a wall of ice holding the water in. Can't fall off the edge of a lake. There are stories of extra land beyond that. Actually, Admiral Byrd even seemed to imply that. So there could be more land. And when it comes to the yacht race allegedly around Antarctica, just look a little deeper. And what you will see is that these boats have a top speed. It's a race. They do a similar race with the same boats in the north. And if you compare the top speeds, it's a joke. In the south, their top speeds in a race are way slower.
Right.
Well, but it would make sense if they're actually traveling further than they think they are.
No, they're sailboats, and the wind patterns dictate it. So in places where there's high wind pattern, there's like northern trades, the southern trades, like wind generally sticks to because of the spinning of the Earth. Unfortunately, the weather patterns are fairly predictable, and there's not a strong wind that pushes you around Antarctica, unlike other places where they hold boat races.
Antarctica is known to be the windiest place on the Earth, and the southern jet streams are actually significantly stronger. If you Google what place has the strongest winds on Earth, it will be Antarctica. And I think they have the pictures ready as well, if you don't mind if we pop that up just so people can see what I was saying. Yeah, so if you look here, you're going to see that is a Ferrel cell image of a magnetic field, that orange picture. And if you take the planets, they all fit right within that in little different portions of it. They literally do. I've actually overlaid them and transitioned them. They all fit perfectly within a Ferrel cell image. And then the other image is going to show you the magnetic flux data on the Earth on a plane, which conveniently they actually took this off the main website. They took the azimuthal projection off once people found it, and we had to make our own. It's a perfect torus. It's a vortex, just like in the magnetic field. And then that white line through the middle of that bottom right picture there is called a block domain wall. It's a plane, meaning we do live in a torus field. Even in the globe model, they have to admit this, right? And there's always a plane through the center of it. And that's where you reside, is on the plane. We can't go beneath that, right? And neither can anyone that believes in the globe. So just to clarify that, not to necessarily bring it back, but It perfectly explains where we are, explains containment, it explains the motions, Lorentz magnetic force, and it's all way, way more viable than the other model. Like, just
Not really. We'll be back in about 60 seconds. We'll continue this conversation. We'll overlay those pictures and see if they match.
Oh, that was ugly.
It's fine. It's just a Glober being a Glober. It's nothing new.
A snake in a suit.
He's still being like, I would say, more respectful than most Globers. Sad to say.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You're right.
The dude's just in his. He's religious, you know. It is what it is. We were all kind of there at one point.
You gotta keep it straight, Toby. Thank you.
I bet they get so much viewership from this dude.
What were you saying, Julian?
We have more than we've ever had before right now.
It didn't really sound like he knew that they were sailboats, though. That's kind of, I think, what the point that he was bringing up, right? It was like, because he was like, oh, they're going really slow. And he's like, well, the wind dictates that. Like, did he not know that?
No, they go much, much slower. Like, you're doing a lot good. What, you didn't make the point really well because it's noticeable and ridiculous.
So you think they're like putting brakes on it or something? Like trying to not go with the wind, or what do you think?
For the distance and
No, the proposed speeds is what the apparent the GPS data speeds are wrong. Is what he's saying.
Okay, got it.
I think it says they're going like 3 miles an hour or something like that.
Damn, they're hitting us with all the
supposed to go
copyright
30.
strikes, huh?
Is that what we're getting?
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get copyright strike for that, but you might be onto something. They're like, oh, people are restreaming this? I mean, I guess once you get kicked off all the other platforms, you're like, pfft, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, this video could be completely clean, and because it's on AJ's platform, they'd probably take it down anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's like Robot Polisher posted a promo for this, and it got taken off TikTok and YouTube. Is it back up?
Personally, but I just don't think they're right. I'm torn by this. But let's talk about some of the other issues that I see constantly brought up, like some of the main arguments for flat Earth, in favor of flat Earth, things like the curvature, seeing over the horizon, air next to a vacuum. I mean, these things I see brought up over and over, but they really don't seem that complicated to me. For example, being able to see over the horizon, I think you brought that up in your opening. The issue is not that you can occasionally see in certain circumstances and under certain conditions, you can see farther than maybe mathematically, geometrically, using Platonic solids, you should seemingly be able to see. That's not the issue, that you have occasional times where you can see farther than you think you should be able to. The issue is that if the Earth was flat, you should always be able to see significantly farther than we can. I mean, how is it that on a flat Earth model, you can't see things thousands of miles away, hundreds of miles away, or even just tens of miles away on a normal day? I mean, what would explain that other than the curvature of the Earth?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's something called attenuation. So light is absorbed into a medium, right? That's why you can't see the Hollywood sign from just a few miles away, right? I don't encourage anyone going and trying that. Just take my word for it. Stay out of there. But anyway,
good
my point is, can't see forever, right? The opacity of the Atmos. There's actually a very famous observation of the Canigou Mountains from hundreds of miles away. And you can't see them until the sun sets behind the mountains. And then because that light is so much brighter and you have the contrast of the shadow of the mountains, you can see them. And they should be miles below the curvature of the Earth. So even in the globe paradigm, right, it would be, why can't we see the mountains before that? Well, it's because the Atmos between us and the mountains are blocking the light. It's being absorbed, right, until you had a bright enough light to see it. So that's it's pretty simple. We wouldn't see forever on a flat Earth. That's a misconception.
Okay, but we would be able to see significantly further than we can. I mean, the average, view distance for the horizon's like 2 or 3 miles, right? But when I fly on a plane, planes typically fly at about 6 to 8 miles off the surface of the planet. I can look down. I'm looking through atmosphere, and I can see the ground perfectly well. So how is it that our view distance isn't at least 6 or 8 miles, since I know from my own personal experience that I can see through the atmosphere for 6 to 8 miles when I'm in a plane?
Well, first of all, we see way further than 6 to 8 miles, right? I mean, it's not that sometimes we see too far. It's that almost every day you're going to see too far. The globe model actually says that on average you see at least 15 to 20% too far. That's the average. But on a plane, you're looking straight down vertically through the atmos, right? And we have like density layers. So looking out horizontally through it, certainly closer to the surface, is going to be way more compounding, denser medium that's going to block your light. So it's not the same as looking straight down through it. I will say also, my boy Jaron, he looked up, or he went and made an observation in California like a week ago, and no one could see the mountains, right? They were 75 miles away. They were 75 feet up. They should have been blocked by hundreds and hundreds of feet of Earth curvature. No one could see them. So one might clap their hands and say, look, the Earth's a globe. We can't see the mountains. But then they pulled out their infrared camera and they could see the mountains. So what that proves, even if you thought the Earth was a globe, is that the atmosphere is actually blocking the mountains. The light from the mountains, you can't see them until you put out infrared, which cuts through a lot of the haze. It only has a small spectrum of light, a longer wavelength of light, and you're able to see it with less obstruction. So that's pretty simple. Also, this picture they're showing right here is also not proof that the Earth's a globe, because if you look at the same shadow in a plane, you'll actually see that it's out parallel below you, and it's merely a perspective thing.
Okay, but where's the sun in that picture? I mean, and you even said the sun sets below the mountains in the last example that you used, but that doesn't make sense. I mean, the sun doesn't set on a flat Earth model; it just moves away from you, right?
Well, it moves away from you and then looks like it's going down. Just like if you see a plane flying towards you, it looks like it's going up. Then as it flies away, it looks like it's going down. Or if you look down a long street, you'll see street lights look like they're going down. They're all the same height, though, right? It's just perspective. The same reason that a hallway converges, the sun does the same thing. And actually, we have many observations of the sun disappearing above the horizon. So the sunset happens above the horizon. So that actually perfectly matches plain Earth. The sun is just small, local, moving away from us, looks like it's going down and then disappears into the distance. But on a globe, it should always be going behind the physical curved horizon. But we see the sun disappear above the horizon.
We see the sun disappear above the horizon?
Yeah, yep.
Not in the sunsets I've seen. I see it disappear below the horizon.
It is more rare.
But I mean, look, if this tabletop is the Earth, I mean, it doesn't matter how far away the sun gets. If I'm on the tabletop and the sun is above it, I should be able to see it, unless the sun is like a stage lamp, right? Like a spotlight, a shielded spotlight where I'm blocking perpendicular view. I mean, if the sun is a ball, or even if it's just a disc, I should be able to see it. No matter how far away it gets, I'll still be able to see it. There's no illusion where the sun I mean, it's pretty clear the sun drops behind the Earth and then disappears for like 12 hours, then comes up on the other side. I mean, again, this is just observation, but it perfectly comports with the round Earth model. I do not see an explanation for this in the flat Earth model.
Well, so for one, it actually doesn't, right? They say that when the sun sets, it actually was below the curve of the Earth for multiple minutes.
Right.
Every day.
Right. Because light bends, yeah.
Yeah, so just another illusion that's convenient, right? But fine, yeah, sure, light could bend. It's not really.
But how do you explain sunsets? How do you explain the colors of sunsets without a round Earth? Because in the round Earth, it's pretty simple, right? The lower it goes, the more layers of atmosphere it's going through. Certain light frequencies are blocked by it. Other light, as you point out, like infrared will break through. So you've got these spectacular colors because they're the whatever higher or lower frequency that break through the atmosphere. I mean, how do you explain sunsets having colors if the Earth is just moving away from us? I mean, there is no physical explanation for that, like there is in the round Earth.
Of course there is. You're looking at the sun, the source of light, through the most dense layers of the atmosphere, even though it's above you, which, mind you, it's 93 million miles away. on the globe far above the atmos, right? You're looking at an angle that goes through the atmos. So you're seeing it through all of those layers of air. It's just like how if the street lights were going down the street, I could put my thumb up and block them. I could see a shadow relative to that. It would look like the street lights are below my thumb. I could put a 2-foot trash can on the ground and see the street lights that are 10 feet tall look like they're below the trash can, just based on perspective. You would be looking through the horizontal atmos, since perspective is having you look down at where the sun is. You're going to see that light through that.
The sun often gets bigger as it passes, as it goes to set. I mean, it doesn't get smaller. It's not a diminution to nothingness, right? The idea that if it's just moving away, it should just get smaller and smaller and smaller. When it goes to the atmosphere, often the atmospheric lensing makes it appear as though, if anything, it grows bigger, but usually it looks like it stays the same. And again, like atmospheric lensing or refraction explains pretty much all of this, like the idea that you can see farther than you think technically you should be able to. That's because, the Earth's atmosphere bends the light. I mean, light bends. Everybody knows this. This is why I can talk to you through a camera lens, right? Because the lens itself is bending the light. That's why, so the light bends with the atmosphere, and so it goes farther than you think it should be able to.
Well, that's different, though. That's two different media. Right? So you have the lens and you have the air. It's two different media. It's called Snell's law, which is two different mediums, but not a singular one. Now, it's not that light can't be displaced within a medium. It's just that that's an unfalsifiable claim. They claim that light can be infinitely bent around the globe. You could see the back of your head if you wanted to, that there's no limit to it, which makes it unfalsifiable. But sure, you can say that, but there are certain observations we've made that falsify the refraction claim. And without refraction, the entire globe falls apart. For example, I had an Air Force pilot reach out to me and has chosen to remain anonymous for pretty obvious reasons. Verified him for sure, Air Force pilot. And he told me that he saw the K2 mountain range from 300 nautical miles away. And he was flying at 28,000 feet altitude. And the elevation of those mountains are at 28,000 feet. And he saw the mountains level with him as he actually, did target acquirement, establishing the landmark with his manual viewing pod. He saw the mountains level with him from 300 miles away. It should be like up to 5 degrees below you on a globe, right? Because even though they're the same height, it's obviously on a globe, but it was level with him. And like at that height, you can't even invoke refraction, admittedly, because it's so high. It's like the much thinner portion of the atmos. And of course, it doesn't even go 5 degrees anyway. So, and that's what woke him up. The flat Earth was his experience in the Air Force, and I've never heard a rebuttal to that. Most people just claim the guy doesn't exist or he must be lying. Well, he certainly exists because I verified it. So if you see what I'm saying, he saw the mountains 300 miles away and they were level with him. Right, at 28,000.
But he saw it from an extremely elevated position, and the mountains themselves are elevated. I mean, we're not talking about a guy seeing something 300 miles away from ground level. So, again, there are certain circumstances, certain conditions of the atmosphere where you can get things like that. I mean, everybody knows. I mean, rainbows are an illusion, mirages are illusion. Like there are certain things that the atmosphere does to light that is dazzling or baffling to the human eye. But that, again, we would be able to see every mountain from 300 miles away if the Earth was flat. Seeing it, in one circumstance doesn't prove anything. And we had a pilot who called in yesterday talking about flying at night and seeing the glow of cities from about, I think you said about 100 miles away, and slowly you see the glow of the city rise up. I mean, hell, even when I was driving into Austin from the Renaissance Fair last weekend, the first thing I saw of Austin was the top of the skyscrapers. I mean, it's just everyday observations. You can see that the globe exists, that there's a curvature, and that things disappear over the edge of it.
I think that's kind of the big part here, is that there's just typically a misunderstanding of the flat Earth position or what it actually has adequate explanations for. Like seeing things disappear bottom up would be what happens on a plane Earth. You have the ground ramp up. But just to clarify what is wrong with the observation in the plane, it's not that they're so far away you shouldn't see them, because you're right. He's super high in the air, right? So you're looking up from higher on the globe, and you can see further the higher you are, whether the Earth is flat or whether it's a globe. The problem is that they were level with him. they should have been 5 degrees below his level, his plane's level. They should have been 5 degrees below that.
Well, that's
They
not
were
a lot.
level with him. That's a ton when you're talking about a military fighter jet establishing target acquirement or looking at the landmark. 5 degrees is a ton in the Air Force. And mind you, I mean, I'm not an Air Force pilot. I just listened to him. He broke it all down, showed me everything. He said that there's not a pilot in the world. There's not an Air Force pilot in the world that would tell you that 5 degrees is some type of acceptable range of error, right? So yeah, and honestly, like I said, I talked to kind of the top guys that defend the globe. They all just say this can't be true, or it would absolutely refute the globe. Well, he did it. So
Well, again,
it was level with him.
Yeah, I mean, without proof, you can take his word for it. But again, I don't think that one anecdote disproves all of the things that we're talking about.
Sure.
And again, attenuation can go some way to explain some aspect of like things like why the sky is blue or why sunsets are multicolored, but it doesn't explain why the sun disappears completely at night. That's not explained by attenuation. Attenuation is just the diminution of light as it passes through an atmosphere.
My God.
That's not. It doesn't make things completely disappear in the way that we see the sun just obviously go behind the horizon. And I do want to look at a couple other pictures here. I know you're familiar with it, but I haven't heard your response to it. Things like the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway. If the crew can bring this up, where I mean, unless I'm missing something, it very clearly. So this is longest bridge in the world for a while. I think there may be a longer one now, but Lake Pontchartrain, just outside of New Orleans, this bridge is level to the surface of the water, but you can see a very clear curve as it diminishes over the horizon. So this was taken, I think, from about 15 stories up with an extreme zoom lens. That's why everything is compacted. That's why those bridges or the humps look so dramatic. Really, they're pretty, your typical humps, but that's just an effect of the massive optical zoom lens. But I mean, clearly it goes over the horizon, and there's other, pictures like this. I mean, why would it look like this if the Earth was flat?
Yeah. So, and just to throw out, I just really quickly dropped like 5 other pictures of Pontchartrain that we should pull up, because this is not what you see when you look at the whole bridge. It's insanely flat. But I will point out a few things about this. This is an older argument from around 2015. It's kind of become a meme, actually. And most Globers have abandoned it because if that's the curvature of the Earth has to be like a fraction of the size they claim it is. It would have to be a tiny, tiny, tiny globe Earth for that to be the curve of the Earth. Way smaller than 4,000 miles. But it's a 100-mile radius globe, right? It's way too drastic a rate of curvature over that distance. In addition, it's a foreshortening effect based on optics in the atmos, which that place notoriously has pretty crazy atmospheric conditions and pollution and stuff. And we've replicated a flat surface. You put enough of an atmospheric temperature fluctuation and stuff, it'll start to warp it, compress it, and make it look like it's curving, also based on your angle. And in this picture, I'm pretty sure they actually compressed it. So you can take a picture. You can take a picture.
Experience of the flat Earth debate.
Listen, I'm only going to ask you a quick question. Are the sun and other planets flat as well? Because I've been a big astronomer since I was a kid with my dad when we had professional telescopes when I was a kid. Now anybody can get them that have the computerized controls. I've sat there overnight drinking a 12-pack of beer in college with a 35mm camera hooked to a 12-inch refractor telescope and taking photos of Saturn and Jupiter and watched it as it's turning. Watch the globes turning. I put green lenses on the telescope and could watch the sun and over an hour see it turn and see see coronal mass ejections moving in the time lapse. Boom, it's round.
I'm saying, bro, like
debate over, Austin. I'm sorry to tell you, you've now lost the debate, and the Earth is round. What's your response to what Alex just brought up there?
Yeah, the sun could be round, and it doesn't mean that the Earth is, right? So it's and also, by the way, the Earth can be round and flat. Of course, it could be a plane shape, it could be a plane circle, but yeah, I mean, I agree that they look like they could be spheres. They certainly look like discs in the sky. They have cycles, but they all move around the Earth. The Earth's in the center, right? It is illogical to look at the ceiling and be like, well, that's what the Earth is.
Right, but
so
again, you can plot the paths of the planet from the Earth, and you can predict them and everything, but it makes so much more sense when you take the sun as the center.
Someone
Everything's
needs
in a
some
perfect
Kepler
little
and
circle.
mass
Everything's
equation.
concentric.
That was a great cameo.
Makes a
I mean,
hell
we
of a
got to
lot
talk
more
about my
sense
dad.
than trying to plot things from
That was
geocentric.
great.
Which, I mean, how do you explain the way that the planets move in and then away from
This
us, and then
showed us
towards
that
us and
Alex
away
is
from us?
listening closely to
I
every
mean,
second of this,
you
by the
can
way.
say torus field, but frankly, that's just not a good enough explanation.
The magnetic force, right? So there's a
Magnetic.
there's a book by a PhD professor that is called Relational Mechanics. He breaks all this down. The specific force, Lorentz magnetic force, shows the dynamic equivalence of the planetary motion from a stationary position. Relational Mechanics, Andreas Cease, and there are many other papers like that exist. So the ironic part is it actually works better. This is where I like it works way better. You don't need dark matter. You don't need dark energy. You don't need expansion. You don't need all these made up pseudoscience fairy tales. Gravity's been disproven. Everyone knows relativity doesn't even work. We don't have something better.
Wait, what do you mean? What do you mean gravity's been disproven? I mean, gravity exists.
The theory of
right?
relativity. The theory of relativity has been disproven, just like Newtonian gravity was disproven before that.
Right. So these are refinements of theories to explain natural phenomenon, but gravity exists, right? And it's different than electrostatic attraction. It's different than magnetic attraction.
It's totally
something
different.
else, right?
No, I wouldn't say it's. Well, okay, it's the effect of things falling to the Earth, right? And it's little g, gravity. Of course, it exists. We use it for engineering. We use it to determine weight. Of course, it 100% exists. But why? What is it? Is there a force pulling everything down to the Earth? Well, that's what the globe needs. The evidence for gravity is the way that it's been defined is that, well, the Earth can't be a globe without it. But no, actually, density causes things to go up and down, and
Density?
electrostatics.
Wait.
Why
does density cause things to go up and down?
Because of buoyancy. So the relative density of the object with the medium, the pressure mediation causes it to go up or down like a ping pong ball floats in water, golf ball.
Because of gravity, because buoyancy is an effect of gravity. Because without gravity, there'd be no reason for it to go up or down. It would.
Wait. We gotta. Okay, so the principle of density, right? Long predates the idea of gravity, but eventually we did throw little g in there. Like I'm saying, little g isn't a problem for flat Earth at all. It's just the downward acceleration. Little g is not the cause; it's the effect. Everyone knows the effect exists. Things go down when they have weight. Gravity, gravitas, means heavy. How heavy something is. Weight. We don't dispute that. We dispute the claimed cause of gravity, that the bending and warping of concepts called space and time somehow create illusions where everything shrinks and slows down and makes things fall to the Earth in a straight path that's curving at the same time. That's just all pseudoscience. I actually did I want to plug the level documentary. I did a test there where we did actual science, and I used a Van de Graaff generator, which manipulates electrostatics, and I made the object change weight, fall at a different rate, go up and down just by manipulating the electric field, and that's what we have on the Earth. We have an electric field that has a 100 volt per meter increase, and when I flipped it with my Van de Graaff generator, it made the object float. So I proved that that's a cause of things falling down and why they fall down, and that every object that exists is electrostatic. So,
I mean, there's just so many things wrong with that. Obviously, it's not buoyancy. Buoyancy only exists because of gravity. If you had a tank of water out in space where there's no noticeable gravitational force, then you could put a beach ball in the center of the water. It would stay in the center of water. There would be no up for it to float to. So, buoyancy is an effect of the gravitational pull of the Earth. Gravity is obviously not electrostatic. You can counteract gravity with forces. Obviously, I can counteract gravity by picking this up. That doesn't mean gravity doesn't exist. You can't affect gravity itself with electrostatic or electromagnetism. You can't block gravity with a lead wall, right? Nothing blocks gravity. So it's just obviously not electrostatic or magnetic or any other force that we can manipulate, because we can't manipulate gravity. Except they probably can with the Bell experiment and other secret technology that we all know they have. We'll be back on the other side. One more long chunk of this debate, and we'll get into the psyop
my
aspect.
army because this man is level 15. You can't.
Wow,
Fuck off.
I think he's about to talk about the electric field. I think they come back and he's going to talk about the electric field geometry, bro.
I can't.
Vertical
We're going to
electric
talk
field.
about I'm gonna talk
increases
about
in
the
voltage
electric
as you
feel
go
of
up
your mic,
instead of
bro.
rate
Yeah,
speed.
Pizza, what the hell's wrong with you?
What's wrong with your mic, dude?
We lost
Hey,
Let him,
Pizzo, you there?
you let him go real quick through those equations. When he knows how to come back each one, you just got to give him a minute.
I don't know if somebody can go ahead and say a prayer for the rest of the show. That would be awesome.
Where's
Yo,
the mayor?
yo, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Better.
All right, real talk. Mute it for a second. I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna pray. Dear Heavenly Father God, you creator who actually hears us wherever we are, who even right now sees all things that are taking place, I pray again for Witsit in the middle of this debate that you will put your words upon his lips and let the truth be spoken from his mouth and let it be heard in the ear of many millions of people. Let it open their minds and soften their hearts and cause them to understand and believe. And may it lead them to you. In Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Protected.
Amen.
From the
Amen.
evil
Thank you very much.
Lord, please don't make Harrison so gay.
I
I
just
want to
wanted to
thank
say as
everyone in this
well.
room that made this possible. And this is everyone's effort put to work, okay? I appreciate it.
I just wanted to mention also that he's not trying to convince Harrison or freaking anybody in the staff. It is all for the people who he's.
Good call.
You know.
I pray that Wits starts bullying this dude, man. He's being a little too nice.
That's not how prayers work.
It's not how prayers.
This dude thinks he's a genie. He's talking to a genie or something.
I pray for all the best parts of Witness to step forward and be witnessed right now. That's what I pray for.
Facts. You either dictate the convo or you're dictated in the convo. It's that simple.
He's doing
Can
great.
y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, cool.
Yeah, thanks for the prayer. That was great.
Dude, as soon as I prayed, everything went crazy. My internet broke. Sorry.
No.
I mean, it's just, there's nothing.
Oh, shit.
Harrison has said nothing new, that's for sure.
He has objected vehemently and said "nuh-uh" very loudly, though.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about it once. We'll do a quick little post show.
But like, dude, they seem to be piling on the objections and then going right to commercial with like revelry, or it's just me.
Well, I mean, sure, but that's what a Glober does, right? Like, even if they're trying to be fair, that's what they're gonna do.
That's a sad statement, but maybe.
Austin did get the last word at that one commercial break, though.
Yeah, but I want them to go through all the math that they just, referenced loosely but didn't actually explain. Because of course the explanation favors us, not them. They just surface level mention it and move on.
Listen, I don't want to hear your science talk, Shane.
Gotcha.
I just want to talk about observations.
No actual explanations.
or whatever.
Shush it.
Yeah, I know they're coming back. It's like they're playing to the lazy, comfortable person. Hey, buy these pills. Hey, buy our products. Why don't you just keep chilling on your globe? Because obviously it's a globe.
Haven't you seen it?
Well said.
Gatekeeper's gonna gatekeep.
Yeah, but also at the same time, they're like, hey, we're talking to flat earthers here. Buy our products, buy our stuff if you're a flat earther.
All right, folks. We started this whole conundrum. I thought that was appropriate. One of my favorite songs, actually. I love this song. Austin Witsit is my guest at Witsit Gets It on X. WitsitGetsIt.com is his website you can go to. We've covered a lot of topics here. There's really only one more that I hear brought up quite a bit that I'd like to get into, and then I want to get into the aspects of the conspiracy that would be necessary to contain this lie if the round Earth is in fact a lie. But let's talk about sort of one of the other claims of the Earth's atmosphere existing next to a vacuum. Again, this seems on first blush, it's like, oh, yay, wait, why does that happen? How is that the case? We've got an atmosphere here. We've got a vacuum in space. what is it that stops the atmosphere from going into the vacuum of space? But we get that pressure goes down as we travel up in altitude, right? We get that the atmosphere gets thinner as it goes up. I mean, I don't think you dispute that. So, I mean, that makes perfect sense to me. I know, you say that to have air pressure, you have to have a container. But are there containers that are pressurized where there's a gradient? Because there's a gradient in our atmosphere that pretty well explains how the atmosphere sticks to Earth. It's gravity. It doesn't require a container, it requires a force. In this case, that force is gravity.
Yeah, sure. So you can have a gradient, of course, but you need gas pressure to have a gradient. So it's delta X, change in X. So you need X. You need the gas pressure. And what we're saying is the antecedent, the requirement for gas pressure is containment. You can absolutely replicate a pressure gradient in a container. You cannot replicate one without a container. And we see that the dispersal of gas is omnidirectional. It goes directly up. In the face of this alleged force that's not a force that's pulling everything down. Supposedly gravity is holding air, gas, next to a vacuum, but gas disperses in all directions instantly. So yes, we do have a pressure gradient on the Earth, but the requirement for that is an actual contained system that the gas can then begin to attempt to equalize within and give you a gradient. Just like if you have liquid propane or any type of gas, not liquid, but any type of gas in the container, there's going to be a gradient. There's going to be more gas at the bottom
because of gravity
confined within that. But it's not, but it's in a container. So as soon as I remove the container, right, it's going to disperse. Obviously, that's why sodas make the little shh sound, right? Because the pressure is equalizing to the pressure around it. So that's our point, is that you can say gravity, but where gravity is supposedly the strongest at the surface of the Earth, gas goes in all directions, including directly up, and it goes directly into a vacuum. Gravity's not holding it down there. But supposedly where gravity is weaker, next to a 10 to the negative 17 torr vacuum, somehow it just sits there and it doesn't go and fill the available space, which is antithetical to,
well, it's just a countervailing force. I mean, if you have a molecule of air that floats up to the top of the atmosphere and then floats out of the atmosphere, and now it's not surrounded by anything, it's all, for all intents and purposes, in a vacuum, it's still being affected by the gravity to Earth, and it'll drift back to Earth. I mean, what is the force that's pulling it away from the other air molecules in a vacuum? I mean, again, this really doesn't seem all that complicated to me. I mean, the gravity pulls the air down. The air, close to the surface of the planet is thicker because that's where gravity's pulling everything. But air is light enough to float because of buoyancy or density. It doesn't all fall straight down to the Earth.
You need to listen to me.
This is just an effect of gravity. Again, you don't need a container to explain this. You just need a force that is working on the molecules to keep them attached to Earth, right? I mean, again, I don't get how this is a container is not necessary.
Like I said, though, like we're claiming a force is pulling the gas down to Earth, but gas goes in all directions, including directly up and violently. It's the second law of thermodynamics. To quote Arthur Eddington, any idea or theory you have that's contrary to the second law is just completely, inexcusable and dead on its face. But you're saying that the gravity is basically pulling the air back down in the face of a vacuum. But where does the gravity of Earth stop affecting gas then, right? Because the gravity of the Earth doesn't extend the entire universe. And so the air is still going to fill the available space, and it fills the available space on the surface where gravity would be the strongest. So very simply, it's very easy to replicate what we have on the Earth. With a container, you can create a gradient, certainly with all the gas that's being introduced at the surface level and the gas cycle and the temperature and the density differences. But you cannot replicate it without a container. So that's the argument. And gravity, again, has actually been disproven. And we've proven our understanding of gravity, which is that it's electric. We've actually proven it with experiments. So
but
that would be like
so you can affect gravity with electricity?
What people call gravity, which is the effect of things falling down, right? Yeah, I can take electrostatics and I can make things go up. And actually, when you brought up the bell, that's what they did. They actually used what they call ether physics. I have a really good book on it. It's called The Bell. And they used electrogravitic propulsion. So of course, the Nazis back in like as early as 20s and 30s, they had these UFOs. They were using the electric nature of the environment to make things, quote unquote, levitate and defy material physics They weren't using an anti-gravity device that bits space and time. It was electrogravitic propulsion. They actually they called Einstein's theory mysticism, and they applied what they called ether physics. That's been hidden and suppressed. They went in and grabbed all of Tesla's work, and now they say that Einstein is correct. And of course, we have no technology. All the technology the military is using for these devices, I guarantee you, is electric. Because, like I said, in science, you have a naturally occurring observable phenomena, dependent variable. You try to figure out what causes it. So things fall down. What causes it? Well, let's say it's electrostatics. Let's test it. We're going to manipulate that. I did that, and I can make the object go up and float. I can make it fall down faster. And on the Earth, we have an electric field, and everything that exists is electrostatic. Everything's electric. Right. So it would be insane to think that it doesn't have something to do with everything being electric, because that's 10 to the 36th power stronger than gravity's even claimed to be on the smallest scale. So it's one of the biggest exceptions.
Right, but that doesn't disprove gravity. Again, electric currents have or electric. They have properties that gravity doesn't have, so it just can't be the same thing, and you can't block it. You can't really affect it. I mean, there may be hidden technology like the Bell that are able to manipulate gravity, but they're not doing it in a way that is easily replicable, I don't think. And again, you can counteract the force of gravity, but I don't think you can actually manipulate it. I think that might be an illusion.
Someone with no answers. He's certainly got a lot to say.
Well, I'd like to remind everybody that he started off the debate saying that
perception versus reality,
he didn't want to get
or
into science, he didn't care about science,
what we can
and now
see
here he
and
is
what
arguing
explains
about
it.
science. He clearly doesn't
The
know.
conspiracy necessary to keep this lie
Good.
going.
I'm glad he
If
is saying
round
it,
Earth
though.
was a lie, it is so impossibly
When it's
vast.
done,
I mean, it just makes no sense. There's no payoff for it other than maybe moderately affecting people's
There's the
willingness to
incredulity.
believe. Which again, it's like, the idea that we're in a firmament or that we're the center of the earth. I mean, nothing in God's creation proves God. That's sort of like one of the aspects of it, right? There are lots of things that could prove God that would be miraculous, that you could go, there's nothing other than God that explains this. Yeah, the Earth being at the center of the universe would be one of those things, but it's not, because it's not, right? It's not the center of the Earth, so it doesn't prove that. But nothing in creation proves that. So this idea that,
whale tail.
I guess it's almost like contradictory, where if we were in a giant celestial hamster cage with the firmament over us, it would prove that God exists, but also in a weird way that's not what God does. So it would prove that something other than God exists. It would that doesn't make any sense to me. And then you've got
Did you hear that
tens
from
of thousands of
Cosmom?
people working on space programs.
Is my best.
Let me give you an example. I have a friend about 10 years ago. He's working for a company that built the titanium aluminum rings that connected satellites to the vessel that took them into space. So you've got a small company with about 4 or 5 Ivy League doctorate engineers that are working on building these rings to attach the satellite to the rocket. And that's just one company of thousands that exist out there. Are they in on it? Are they being fooled? Do you have another company that's coming up with the false information to feed to them, to make them think that when they go to watch the satellite launch, are they just watching the thing they built fly into the sea, and then somebody else is launching a balloon that just looks like a satellite? I mean, explain some of this to me, because the conspiracy necessary to carry this out is so vast, it's just nonsensical.
Oh, dude.
Yeah,
really?
so it would
There's
be like
the
I said, to use the
incredulity.
adoption analogy. It'd be like, is everyone in the church and your school and your community in on the lie? Like, no, they believe the lie. Satellites aren't a problem for flat Earth. I know that many flat earthers will say that they don't necessarily believe in them and that they think there's a lot of balloons. And there is a classified, very, very advanced balloon project that is going on, and it is conducting a massive surveillance on the public. This is just a fact, but and like immense fleets of military surveillance balloons, and NASA's the #1 purchaser of helium in the world, and this is true. But satellites are not a problem for flat Earth. That's just a belief that it is, but it's not. Actually, the satellite equations use geocentric physics and equations. They use real inertial forces, as if the Earth is stationary in what's called an Earth-centered, Earth-fixed frame, or an ECI, Earth-centered inertial frame. And not to get all into the technical aspects, satellites are not exclusive at all to a globe Earth or a moving Earth. In fact, it's exclusive to a stationary Earth based on the physics and equations they use. And then for it to be on a plane Earth, it would just be an ellipse. But to answer your question precisely,
wait, hold on. It would be an ellipse. I mean, what does that mean? So satellites exist. They're floating above us, above the atmosphere, but they're just continually circling a plane.
Yeah, they certainly could be, right? Like I've seen Starlink myself. I've watched launches myself. You know, I know that there's what people call Starlinks in the sky. It's not a problem at all because it's just a coordinate system transform from a globe to a plane, and the actual physics and equation treat the Earth as if it's stationary.
No, it doesn't.
That should be significant because it's not just it's a coordinate system. You can treat it like that because it's from the Earth. No, it's using physics in the equations and specifically inertial forces, which do not exist in the relativistic
he's
globe
wrong,
model,
but I'm glad
which
he
means
said it.
if the satellites are up there and they are working, if they're proof of anything, to quote PhD astronomer Gerardus Bow, it's proof that the Earth is stationary and the universe is geocentric. But those people that made the pieces aren't.
See that's a completely fallacious extrapolation. I mean so ECI, right? Earth-centered inertial coordinates versus ECEF, something like that. Earth-centered, Earth-fixed, right? So both of these are coordinate systems for a spherical Earth. The only difference is one of them takes the spin of the Earth into account, while the other one doesn't. First of all,
he's definitely firing up a little bit.
But he doesn't want to talk science.
It requires a spherical Earth, first of all, right, for these coordinates to make any sense. They also take into account the spinning of the Earth, meaning it's not stationary. One of them doesn't take into account the spinning of the Earth, but it's not because it's not spinning. It's just because that's not
anymore.
The coordinate system just doesn't rely on the spinning of the Earth. And regardless of any outcome of those, that has nothing to do with whether the sun is circling the Earth. It's about satellites.
I'm not talking about the sun. I'm saying that the actual physics
universe.
Well, yeah. I'm saying that's because they use forces of a rotating universe. They actually treat the universe as if it's rotating and creating real inertial forces, specifically centrifugal, Coriolis, and Euler forces. And in the globe model, those are fictitious forces. They're not real. In a stationary Earth model, the universe is actually rotating around the Earth, creating angular momentum. Satellites would be using that on a stationary Earth. Well, that's what the physics and equations show. They treat it as if the universe is rotating around the Earth, creating a real force, and they have to account for them to put the satellites up. And then on a plane, you're right, that is a globe, but on a plane, that's just a coordinate system transform. It becomes an ellipse, and it takes the same flower of life geometry I showed earlier. Actually, one of those depictions was the ISS path. Right, and that's just mapped out on a plane.
But continual motion would, in that case, I mean, with an orbit, either continual motion is a consequence of just the fact that there's no wind resistance, and so once your initial velocity basically will be maintained with a little bit of variance because of the tiny amount of atmosphere that does exist outside of what we consider the atmosphere, the 62-mile delineation, which is not a scientific delineation, it's an aeronautical delineation, determining whether or not you can fly using conventional methods or whether you need rocket propulsion. So you can have inertia that exists that continually rocket something around the Earth without additional input. But if something's just floating above a plane, it either needs to be pushed in a way that that's continually being pushed, but even if not, it would need something to change its direction. I mean, how do you explain that? Satellites just floating above us in ellipses, you would need external forces that would require fuel. That would be pretty obvious to the people building the satellite, right?
No, like I said, they use the actual force of the universe rotating around the Earth in the physics and equations. And so on a stationary Earth, that's it. Instead of the Earth spinning, making the illusion that the sky spins, right? It's actually the sky spinning around the Earth like we observe. That would generate a real force. It would have angular momentum, and there would be a net inward force. So if you threw something up in it, it would just continually move around with the universe's momentum, the actual angular momentum and force of the universe. And what I'm pointing out is that's literally the physics and equations that they use.
But you're still describing a spherical Earth.
Well, that's why I point out that the end of it, right? Because that actually is a major problem for heliocentrism. but the plane part is just a coordinate system transform. You could think you're going around the globe, and it would just be an ellipse over a plane, and you would have no idea. They actually account for a change in velocity, which makes perfect sense with an ellipse. But in the globe model, it's supposedly free falling in a geodesic path, not changing velocity. Yet they actually do account for change in velocity and a change in the speed of light for the signals for GPS. So what they're actually doing and accounting for doesn't work with the model. It's just overlooked. People assume it. I wanted to address what you were asking, though, the meta here, which is like, are these people in on it? No, of course not, bro. They think the Earth's a globe. They think we just use these coordinate systems for convenience sake, right? And it works. It's good enough. Who cares? They think they use Newtonian gravity, even though that's no longer the case. It works good enough. And people make little pieces for it. That's one of the main arguments for Apollo. It's like there were 300,000 people that were all in on it because they made pieces. It's like, no, they compartmentalized the job to everyday Americans, so you would ask me that question, right? Would think it's legit.
That's not how compartmentalization works. I mean, compartmentalization is an aspect of like the military and secret operations. The people who are compartmentalized know they're compartmentalized. The people who are building satellites are in communication with the people building the other parts of the satellite, and they observe it as it flies, and then they get readings, data readings to determine whether or not the mission was successful. So they would have to be fed fake information, or like what happens is, I mean, they think they're launching a satellite into orbit. Are they not? Or is there a parallel industry that's doing the real math and feeding them the fake information? I mean, you get this whole thing just sort of falls apart the more you think about it, and that's not even getting into the secrecy aspect where you have to,
think Chris knows about
again,
what
either
Alex
have these
talks
people
about?
who are
Like, come on, dude.
doing this for decades without even either noticing that something is wrong or admitting or letting it leak out that something is wrong. The scale of conspiracy, especially now with all of these private companies going into space, is so vast, and again, nonsensical, man. If I was the mastermind, the Jesuit priest that figured out that there's a firmament and wants to trick everybody, the last thing I would do would be come up with a lie that would set up generations of having to fake things, right? You could just say, yeah, we tried to go to space. It turns out there's like crazy radiation and everybody dies, so let's not try to leave. Like, there's a million other ways you could do it. You're thinking they went with the strategy of let's fake space travel for the next 100 years, on a continual basis. As a conspiracy theorist, somebody who sits here and thinks and talks about conspiracies every day, this falls utterly, pardon the pun, flat. This makes no sense as a conspiracy at all.
He is holding on to that.
I strongly disagree, brother. Like, for one, let's not conflate like if satellites are up there with space travel. Those are fundamentally different things. I mean, they're not really faking space that much. They claim they went in the 60s and haven't gone back for 50 years and destroyed the technology and blah, blah, blah. We've caught NASA faking it. So I encourage everyone to investigate that. You can actually go to my channel. I have a NASA fraud series I just started. We have objectively caught them faking things using wires, harnesses, green screens, bubbles in space, and people laugh because it sounds so ridiculous. You know how many things you laughed at when you first heard and you found out it's true? If I told you the world was going to shut down overnight and start using prison terms like lockdown, you would think I was crazy as well. We've caught NASA lying and faking it, and really, they've got to put it off. They just kick the ball down the road over and over and over. They kick the can down the road, right? Oh, the moon mission's delayed again. So they haven't had to fake that much. And I don't even contend that satellites could be up there. It's not a problem. And the people that are working on it aren't in on it. To quote Gene Kranz, the Apollo flight director from the Apollo missions, he said, the simulations are so good that no one in the control room can tell the difference between their simulations and the real thing. And the astronauts have come out and said that when they supposedly were going on these missions, they thought it was fake. They couldn't even tell the difference. So absolutely, they wouldn't be in on it. They're just being fed a system through a globe coordinate system, GPS corrections. And this gets into technical things. I will just say this. They're good questions. And I think if you're open-minded about your questions and open to the answers of them, when you really do dig into it, you find out, oh, wow, they're making corrections for the Sagnac effect because it doesn't work and it shows different distances. They're making meridian corrections in the south because the distances don't work like they should on the globe. They're actually running it through programs to correct and then put it out to the people on the other end as if it was, in fact, the globe that's working. And these are provable things that require diligent research. So I don't think that the lie is really going to require that many people be in on it. They just believe the lie. right? And by the way, many people have found out it's not true. We've even had people that were astronauts come out and say, anyone telling you they're going to outer space, I guarantee you, is lying. We've had a Polish astronaut come out and say, I wasn't expecting this question, but yes, the Earth is flat. No one's going to outer space. I think that most of, oh, well, let me say this one more thing, dude. You might find this interesting. I went and talked to astronauts myself, okay, and I caught them lying. I asked them, do you see the stars on the day side of the Earth when you're in space next to the sun? And they said, no, you can't see the stars because of the sun. But the official story is that you can only not see the stars during daytime because of the Earth's atmosphere, and you can see them in space. And half the astronauts that have supposedly been to space said you can see the stars. It's pitch black. It's amazing. You can even see them by the sun.
Right.
I looked an astronaut in the face and asked them, and they lied. So why are they lying, right? Like,
well, I've heard that, but you're comparing two different situations. I mean, some astronauts say, yeah, we could see the stars. Other astronauts say we couldn't see the stars, but they weren't next to each other on the same mission looking out the same window. So these are just different accounts of different situations.
He wasn't even listening to him.
Prove anything. I mean, it just proves sometimes you can see the stars, sometimes you can't, depending on the source and strength of the light and the angle of the reflection off the Earth, or where you're looking out the window of the spaceship. I mean, these things are not proof that the Earth is flat or that astronauts are lying. It's proof that there are different conditions at different times and space in Earth. But we only have about 2 minutes left here.
I mean, to be fair, he raised like the best global.
Do you think that this is a valuable thing to spend time on? I mean, we know all of the things going on in the world, and we probably agree on 99% of things. It's just this one thing that we disagree on, which to me, again, the fact that this came out of nowhere, that nobody talked about Flat Earth before. I mean, and you can do the reason. You can look into the archives. Nobody talked about Flat Earth. Flat Earth Society existed. You say it's a CIA psyop, but it's also the font where most of these arguments came from. So that isn't exactly, positive for the flat Earth model.
They're feds.
Divide, distract, discredit. It's a divide and conquer influence operation. It's something that splits our audience down the middle, and suddenly we're talking about flat Earth instead of things that are actually important. I think this has been an extremely successful psyop launched around the time that the Smith
This guy doesn't even know the things we talk about.
Allowing for propaganda in the American media
We probably
landscape.
get better information
That
than
doesn't really, I mean,
InfoWars
that
does.
allows the government through their liaisons in the media to actually lie to us, but they're not doing that. They're saying no ancient civilization ever knew that thought the Earth was flat. They're blatantly lying about it and misrepresenting it. They do clearly use it as a way to discredit other conspiracies, but it's just like, oh, I bet you're an anti-vaxxer. Like, just because someone uses it that way to dismiss people doesn't mean there's no validity to it. As to the PSYOP, what I'm going to reiterate is if it's a PSYOP, it's not working very well, because everyone that finds out that the Earth is a geocentric stationary plane are taking their children out of school. They're homeschooling. They're not falling for medical like psyops. They're not falling for any of the stuff going on, the political shenanigans. They see through all of it, and it brings them all back to a very founded spiritual aspect of their life. And again, you asked me if I think it's important. I do think it's important, bro, because I could very easily talk about other things, right? And I wouldn't be nearly as kind of put into a corner, but I don't, because this unravels.
Thank you for doing this. This has been extremely fun. I know it's been extremely popular. Austin Witsit at Witsit Gets It on X. Go follow him.
Working at InfoWars is a very demanding job, and hosting a 3-hour talk show.
Dude, I'm so glad that Witsit got to say as much as he did, though. No one cares about Harris. We don't need him to agree. He was never going to agree from the beginning. That shouldn't be the expectation.
That was some hardcore spiraling at the end.
Yeah, but it was the light at the end that really irritated me. It was the light at the end that really irritated me, where he was saying, all these arguments come from that place. It's like, that's not true.
Hey,
why are you saying that?
That'll go down in history. The information got out there, and everyone get ready. There's gonna be a wave of new people.
Dude, has anyone else seen a better globe defense put up in quicker time than this right here? We've seen a lot.
That was horrible.
I mean, dude,
I don't think it was that good.
Well, they don't have anything to begin with, but he had it in about 4 seconds before he was even done speaking. It was like, damn.
Yeah, he had the earpiece.
Wow.
He's being you nailed it, Shane. Yeah, he's got a whole team working with him.
Obviously. It's like
not
one person.
I think he's got an earpiece in even. I'm pretty sure that's
They've
what I
been
heard.
working on this for 2 weeks.
Thanks,
dude.
Captain Obvious.
Well, he needs another 2 or 3 teams because he still got destroyed.
I think they had Doofus in the ear on that one.
I mean, the fact that they used argument from incredulity that much is like kind of sad.
It can't possibly be.
I mean, I guess
it is. So it is. So it is. Because it is.
Yeah, he said but it's not because it's not at one point.
But it
it's
is
like,
because it is. And it's not when it's not, and it is like.
That is exactly what I had to say. I said, he did not just say what I think he said. He said
it's not because it's not.
Well, when he started stuttering, that's when Alex came in for the show up.
Well, yeah, but we kind of knew that would happen. Like, who knew that would happen? Raise your hands or whatever.
I didn't expect Alex to show up, but I'm glad he did.
No, there's no way.
Because it does help.
He sticks his nose in everything.
When Alex came in, though, tell me the vibe. Tell me the vibe he was coming in. It wasn't like somebody that you're chilling with at a barbecue who's like your uncle asking you some questions.
Why don't you guys absolutely not? He came in as a troll.
My dad could beat up your dad.
I think he's probably happy with the turnout. Like they're probably getting pretty good viewership, and I got a feeling Alex is paying attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's paying a good point, Toby. Exactly.
You know, I saw between 40 and 50,000 streaming live off of X on their Infowars channel.
Damn.
No way, damn.
That's huge. That's huge. Yeah, that means that
Say that again. Say that again, please. Say it again.
It was between 40 and 50,000 live watching and commenting.
Just us has been like the highest we've seen in a while.
Yeah, even our streams are doing great.
Oh man, that's rough. It's hard to get everything on point.
Oh, you're doing great.
You're doing great, though, man.
Just kidding. You did fantastic. Dude, that was epic.
Oh, you literally did nothing wrong. I'm really proud of you, man. Good job.
No, thank you.
Yeah, dude. Super awesome, bro. Super awesome.
Well, I'm glad that you
got
guys
a little boost when Alex showed up.
I know it was so. I was hoping I'd get to go back and forth with them, and we could make it go viral, buddy.
Awesome. So it is one thing in bounce.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question.
Hey, we are live, by the way, just so you know, Austin.
Okay.
Was there someone who asked a question?
Go to the stars through a telescope. Earth's a globe.
What's up, Indio?
Yo, Indio, welcome.
What's up, Indio?
Hey, Toby, did you have a question you were going to propose?
I don't recall. I was just gonna. I was just gonna say that's awesome. 40 to 50,000 watching over there is huge.
Is that like bigger than their usual number?
They're not gonna have a choice now other than to do more coverage of this topic.
There were that many people watching.
Yeah, on Infowars on X, on their official stream on X, it was like 47,000.
On X alone?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
Yep.
Famous.
Yeah.
Hey, point of something to think about too, bro. Like coming away from that experience, right? Because it was like just you and him, and in the environment you're in, psychologically, it's going to feel natural to feel like you didn't do that great, simply because his entire position and tactic was just like argument from incredulity. Everybody else watching does not have that response. So you did great. You did better than you feel like you did.
Thank you. I should have actually pointed that out. I should have pointed out that it's just consistent, incredulous comedy.
Yeah. I
They
thought,
put up a quicker
as
defense than anyone we've ever seen. It was like, oh, that's like 7 people at once or whatever. It's gotta be.
yeah, credit to
Yeah, just
Harrison.
Showing your stuff several times and his stuff several times.
Yeah, it's just my point of view. I thought you came across really, really well. As someone who's used to presenting to audiences, like I think you spoke in a really understandable way. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. That's what I was trying to do. I find myself slipping into He's asking questions that have technical answers, and I'm like, dang it, bro.
All like, 4 or 5 in a row too, and then commercial or whatever.
You showed though that you knew what you were talking about, and that's the best part. Is it was so simple, and yet it showed very clearly that it was so much deeper that you could.
The part, right? Yeah. It's not this like easily dismissed stupid thing. It's like no. It's diligently researched every little crevice, position. Also, like maybe
you're cutting out a little bit.
You got to do your mic thing again.
So yeah, I thought
your mic there.
Credit to Harrison for being respectful. My thing with this is like, I think like sadly that was one of the better Globe performances we've seen, which is kind of sad. But like my concern is that a lot of the arguments we heard from Harrison were pretty flat Earth 101, like pretty basic. And if he keeps doing investigation, like likely he'll figure things out. My only concern is that like he doesn't inadvertently dig his heels in too much from doing these debates to the point where he's too afraid to, flip his position essentially, because clearly he's got a lot more research to do. Like he brought up Lake Pontchartrain, as if that's gonna make proof of something. It would mean that the Earth was like at a diameter of like 30 miles or something. It's insane. So
I think that's actually a good thing, though, the fact that it gave him an opportunity to address all of the arguments people will find when they Google it, right?
Yep. Oh, totally agreed. I'm just saying for him personally, like I hope he doesn't dig his heels in too much. I hope he stays open. It was kind of funny too. He like contradicted himself because he opened with saying he didn't care about the science and he wanted to talk about other stuff, but then later on he would divert to unsubstantiated science like numerous times.
I know, and I wanted to go back to Pontchartrain so bad. I just like the way it was he was guiding the convo, right? So it's like I didn't really have a choice. In Flat Earth, if they bring something up, you can't leave it unrebutted. If you're like, well, let's go back to this, they just interpret it as running away. But I wanted to point out the very simple part of Pontchartrain, which is what's funny how we have, clear days, we see these long distance observations, and everything optical be dismissed because refraction can answer anything, doesn't matter. But then we turn around and invoke something optical that would show the Earth be like a tenth of the size it supposedly is, and somehow that's proof, right? But I didn't get to go back to the Pontchartrain. I feel kind of bad because I know that I think they kind of messed with Daria about that picture, and I hate that I wasn't able to go back to it, but it's whatever. There were like 20 different things I was like, oh, we need to finish that, and we couldn't, so it was really difficult.
I feel like they piled it on right at the right time.
Yeah, that was a good job.
They masterfully did that, actually. I've never seen like a better defense put up, so like, I mean, not that it's good.
It was a giant. It was
There
a giant.
I'm going to be the bearer of bad news, which I think the one flaw was that you gave him too much respect.
I don't think that'll hurt us.
Statements
I would
were
have done
personally anecdotal, but then if you like, because he kept saying it makes sense to me, this makes sense to me, but then you have to like attack him, and it's going to sound like you're personally attacking him. Like, well, yeah, you believe that, but what you believe is wrong because you have confirmation bias, right?
Yeah.
This was my main goal, though.
You know what I mean?
My main goal is to set up a second follow-up, hopefully in person, and then maybe Alex Jones can walk up or whatever. Or maybe I can talk to Owen or talk to Alex at one point, because that is way bigger to me, that the conversation is just now getting started instead of it being this one and done thing. So I really prioritize like being nice, even if it made me take some like subtle L's,
yeah,
it didn't feel like
it's a better strategy. The way I look at it is, you didn't take an L, but it made it look competitive where you should have smashed him to pieces, right?
Well,
if it was Witsit, I'm gonna keep it real. If it was like a run-of-the-mill blower that you were just like debating in Discord, you wouldn't have acted like that, right? You wouldn't have given him this much respect.
Yeah, but
I understand it's reasonable to like be respectful and stuff, especially when your face is on there and you're in front of 100,000 people or whatever the hell it is. You know what I mean? You have to keep it congenial.
Hey, but Witsit, like, think of it this way though, like from Alex Jones' point of view, like if this conversation pulled in that many viewers, and obviously that's just like up front there, that's not even including like the watches later, like on Band.video when people go check it out later, or like when the downloads and the shares, like if that builds up potentially, like you'll probably even get an invite back to where you would be in studio, because like from their point of view, like, dude, this is more viewers, more like people to see their ads, like, so it's also that too. They're probably gonna look into it even that way.
Any vitamins, or do we need to do enough? Right, come on.
Yeah, it's mainly that.
Yeah, I was thinking like, when are you gonna go to like space with your jar of water so that you can like disprove density and buoyancy, man?
Yeah, it was so crazy, because like basically what's happening is he was just making like statements of fact and then moving on, and I'm like, these are wrong. What you're saying is wrong, But it's like I said, dude, it's really hard. I'm not gonna lie. The most frustrating part, and it's like this in every debate, but I am more assertive, like India is saying, and typically, so you're able to like press the issue harder. But I just had to walk that line. So basically, it gives them this huge advantage where it's just like, oh, that one didn't work. Go to the next. Go to the next. Go to the next. And it's just tough. It's tough because it's like, dude, we didn't get to fully explain that. If it stops right there, you can kind of, trick yourself into thinking I was wrong. Yeah.
Within 48 hours, holding your hand, bro. You did walk the line perfectly.
He had nothing to say about the infrared camera observations by Jaren the other day either. He didn't want to touch it at all.
And dude, they just instinctively say something about the Atmos with the plane, and it's like, wait a minute. You can't say that. You can't say that with the plane, right? So
It's going to be
Yeah, before we
interesting
move
in
on,
48.
I really wanted to talk to India about something, but yeah, just go ahead. But I want to get in there before the conversation moves on too much.
I'll just be real quick. I'll be real quick. Like within 48 hours, it's going to be interesting to see how many people like go to your X and like follow you. Because at the end, he's like, go follow him on X, right? And he gave your name. And if that many people are watching, it's going to be interesting to see how many like new, subscribers or people you have. But with that, I think you can go back to them and say, hey, I'd like to have an in studio, part 2 of the Flat Earth debate. And I'm pretty sure they'll be way more open to it, especially if it draws like such more of a crowd.
Yeah. Witsit, I wanted to say you were well dressed.
Yeah, can I go? Sorry, I reserved after.
Okay, I'd like to get in line.
Yeah, so just very quickly, India, I actually disagree with what you said about Witsit being nice to the host. I think actually that was the right approach. Because if you're nasty to him, at that point, first of all, he's going to have fans watching. So the second you're nasty to him, that gets their back up, right? And you don't really want that because then they just shut off to the conversation. Second of all,
yeah, well, that's like what I was saying was a little bit more nuanced than that. It wasn't like you should be fucking hyper aggressive and smash him into dust. The thing is, everything he said was like came from personal, right? A personal statement. I think this and I think that. And if you go at that, right? Like, okay, what you think about the moon is wrong. It makes it look like you're attacking him as opposed to attacking his argument or his claim that, I've seen the moon do this, I've seen this at this place or that at that place. Or like the one thing he said, like the horizon 6 miles away from, I've seen the horizon 6 miles away from the airplane. Basically, you have to call him a liar, right? Because obviously the horizon isn't 6 miles away from the airplane. But, so, you know what I mean? It's like, listen, I don't envy Witsit. He had a fine line to walk, but like, because he framed everything from a personal viewpoint, just even attacking what he said would make it look like you're attacking him.
Yeah, but okay, let me just get my other thing in quickly, and then I want to move on because I have to people on the show. The other thing I wanted to say was that once you start attacking him, you then allow, and whether that's his ideas or him, bear in mind these people often don't know the difference because of their ego, right? So whatever. Once you start attacking him or his ideas, then you also give him the excuse to be ruder and more dismissive to you. So I actually think that the way Witsit played it was perfect. Like you go in, you kind of cuck a little bit, but you're doing it for the greater picture. Like this one conversation is a doorway to further conversations. It's not like a complete thing on its own.
Yeah, he wants to get invited back.
I agree with you. His hands were tied. And like the way it was presented overall, like the production part was way biased because he kept like getting in the last word and then going to commercial. Sure. I thought that was snake-like. Well, and then like he got to put up images and Witsit didn't, and like, it was a little bit of a bias for him, I would say.
Well, we expected that standard, as Toby said. Yeah, like he forgot to remind us that we should expect that all the time. That's normal.
Well, Daria, and so then I started sharing screen, and they were like, "Oh, our software we're using doesn't let us share your share screen." So then I was having to send the pictures into. Well, I mean, to be fair, I would send the pictures, and they'd send them over to the producers and get it right up, right? So I don't think they were just running B-roll footage. I think, to be fair, what I will say, I think they tried to make it. Be honest, they gave me lots of talking time. I very rarely got interrupted, and I have so much info to cover that like I basically monopolized the talking time as a flat earther. That's what always happens. So all things considered, like they did let me speak, right? And overall, I think it's a net positive because I'll do a follow-up show tomorrow. I've already had someone else, I won't announce it yet, reach out to kind of have a follow-up conversation about this that's pretty big so that we can really cover this stuff and have a real conversation. And then people can go to my channel and see the follow-up, and we'll cover these points in depth, and we'll make sure people understand them. So that's kind of how I see it. I would if I went back in time, I would have done a few things.
It was certainly worth it, no doubt, dude. You're gonna use it. You can leverage this like crazy, especially if 40,000 people watch. Because not only are you going to get people curious about flat Earth, you're going to get people that think, "Oh, I can debate this guy," and they're going to try and step up. And you don't have to be nice to them.
Yeah, of course. And like, I will say that like there were a few things. Echo. There were a few things I would have probably done differently knowing, but only in hindsight, meaning like knowing how quickly the point moved on and whatever, because it ended up making it like I was scattergunning because I had so much to say about each point and he was scattergunning, so I was basically reciprocating it, but it came off probably way worse, right? So it's whatever.
No.
I guess hindsight's 2020.
No, it did not come off as scattergunning at all, man. It actually came off that you were trying very hard to match his pace of jumping between topics, but also trying to touch back to the topic you started at. And that was the one, I believe, golden moment is that throughout it, you always showed that you were either one, open to admit you didn't know necessarily what things are in the entirety scope of it, and that's actually part of this trust that the Earth isn't a globe. But also it showed just how deep you were willing to dive into it, but that you had to hold back because it was very clear it was technical. I know I said that already, but that was the biggest part. Was throughout that scattergunning, it came back. It was very coherent. It didn't feel like you had disconnected, or you didn't disconnect, is what I'm saying. It's not just a feeling.
Well, thanks. I mean, I had a lot of people to say like, "Hey, mention this, mention that," and there were a lot of things I wanted to mention that I didn't get into, but I knew that would happen. Like, what happens is in the moment, it just never can possibly go as planned. Certainly with this debate, certainly with the Glober leading the conversation on his show, but
Hey, Crizzle, you're hot micing.
Yeah, and you're really hard to hear, Shane, for some reason.
If we got
far
skipped,
away.
I'd like to hear what
Yeah.
JC wanted to say.
He definitely took the right approach, guys, though. Like, just objectively looking at it, you got to think this is an opportunity. He doesn't need to slam the dude on the ground. He doesn't need to break his spine, right? He just needs to get the truth out there for the listeners. He did exactly that. He came across as friendly, amiable, presentable, right? Like, you did exactly what you should do. And like I said, you did better than you feel like you did, bro. Don't worry about it.
Thank you. Let me go talk to my wife real quick. I'll come back up here. Just 'cause she just
Should
got
we?
home.
Cool. Yeah. Go ahead. Fantastic job again. Should we go ahead and close out the live streams here then, you guys?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's a plan.
Cool. All right. Well,
Did you have
thanks
good numbers
everyone.
on YouTube?
Yeah, we've
Thanks,
been
everyone.
streaming.
GGs. Okay. Much love. I'll talk to you guys later.
It's over now?
Yeah. So no, not done streaming yet. Thank you everyone. Real quick here. Hold on. Thank you everyone for tuning in to the Ether Cosmology, Space Audits, and ADL streams. We are so pleased that InfoWars brought Austin on, or any Flat Earth delegate for that matter, to actually have a meaningful conversation about this. I would say it could have been, a little bit more fair and even-footed, but in their defense, I don't think Globers realize how unfair they are being with this discussion in a lot of cases because of the psychological manipulation we've been presented with since childhood. And so you can't take it personally. This is just the way that these discussions are always going to be when we're going up against people that have believed in something for their entire life. But they brought him on. They gave him the floor. And honestly, Harrison tried to have a real debate. Or he tried to bring points that needed to be brought up because they're the same doubts, the same questions that a lot of people have. So I would give massive props to Harrison for doing that. Props to Alex Jones for allowing his platform to do this. I don't know if it's necessarily exclusively his platform, but if so, thank you, Alex. And massive props to Witsit. Like what has been said here numerous times, you did, I would say, quite perfectly. Not an easy situation to be in. There's always going to be things we could nitpick to say maybe you could have done this better or maybe you could have done that better, but you did exactly what you needed to do. You went out there and you responded with truth and honesty, and that's great. So I don't want to take up too much space here, but everyone, tonight there's going to be another debate at 9 p.m. Eastern on Jeranism's channel, 6 p.m. Pacific, and that's going to be between Alan and an MC Toon regarding the topic of general relativity. Yeah, that should be a good one.
Praise Jesus.
Yeah, I'm really pumped for that. We're all pretty pumped for that. We're going to do a live watch party here on the Discord server on Ether Cosmology. We will not be streaming that, but we will be watching. And then afterwards, we will be live streaming an after show just to go over anything that maybe got glossed over or anything that we need to make corrections on, or just to have a conversation about how the debate went. And then tomorrow, there's another debate on Jeranism yet again. This one's going to be at 6 p.m. Eastern, and that's between Shane and Ozian again. And that's going to be regarding the topic of the tides and the dynamic versus kinematic forces involved in, or the dynamic forces involved in that that phenomena. And Shane's gonna be arguing from the position of geocentrism, and Ozian's gonna be arguing from the position of the moon causes the tides or whatever, or the whatever the heliocentric argument is. So we'll be doing a watch party here for that as well, but not. And then afterwards we'll be doing a live stream here, so we will be doing the same type of thing we'll be doing tonight for Alan's. And then Thursday night, we will be doing reading night. We're going to be reading a book about optics that's going to talk. We're going to read specifically the section about the Michelson-Morley experiment. So, and then, of course, Friday night, Flat Earth Fridays over on X Twitter Spaces, hosted by Proud and Sacred, the Levelheads. So don't miss that. And, thanks, everyone, for being here, and take care of yourselves.
It's going to be a hell of a week for Flat Earth, man.
Heck yeah.